Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to my main man, Stephen B, for being here with me, better known as Double Pulse. Welcome to the folks on YouTube. Welcome to the folks on Twitch. We are indeed now live, and I need to mute myself on YouTube so that it doesn't come through on my PC. So, very, very important topic tonight, YouTube. This is going to be kind of our swan song together as far as live shows go. Doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be content on YouTube in the future. My team and I, one of which is on the call with me, are still figuring out what that's going to look like. We've got some ideas in the hopper, but it will be, at least for the foreseeable future, my last live stream. Hey, Luz, I was just thinking about you today. Hopefully you're doing okay. As always, your comments are welcome. Your questions are welcome. I've got a good amount that I want to share tonight, so it may take me a minute to get into the comment section or to get into the discussion. Those of you who are listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube will not be able to hear Stephen, but I will relay what he is saying to all of you. For the folks that are listening on Twitch, you will be able to hear Stephen. So, hey, Melanie. Hey, Heather. Good to see you. Yeah, everybody is, man. And then, so it's interesting, like, more people will show up more quickly on YouTube, and then Twitch will eventually just hit this groundswell of people. But Twitch takes a little bit longer. I don't know if it's getting the notifications out to people or what the thing is, but usually people come faster on YouTube, but they come more on Twitch. So, and this being our last YouTube live, all of you are going to want to be following me on Twitch if you'd like to come to these live sessions that we do on Thursday. The topic for tonight is very, very important. I kind of want to preface that before I get into greetings and hellos with everybody. Stephen, thank you for being here. You're awesome, brother. The idea, and Stephen was so awesome because we were talking before the stream, and he's like, what in the world does it mean that the wolf is at the door? You got to explain that. I was like, oh yeah, a lot of people may not understand that imagery or that symbolism, right? And so when I talk about the wolf being at the door, obviously I don't mean a literal wolf, but if you follow me on Twitter, you watched me type it earlier today where I said in your life, you have two choices. You can live out your God-given purpose, right? You can live out the purpose that you know deep down in the well of your spirit is what you're supposed to be doing, or you can spend your entire life trying to distract yourself and numb yourself from the pain of not pursuing that. Because those are the only two options you really have in life. Either you live out the purpose and live up to your potential, or you distract and numb yourself from the pain of not doing it. And that's it. That is the human condition that you've been born into, right? So when I talk about the wolf at the door, I am talking about some of what we're going to talk about in tonight's book of the night. There's a link in the description on YouTube. I didn't put it on Twitch, but that's okay. Let's see. Raz says, hey, B, dinner show. Raz, check your Facebook messages. I wanted you to be on this call with us. Yeah, on Twitch. Yeah, see if you can do that. And then, so the bottom line is the wolf represents resistance, okay? And it represents fear, okay? No matter what you set out in your lives to do, no matter what you're going to do in business, your freelance careers, or even if you're not a freelancer or an entrepreneur like I typically reach out to, my life has been about making, most specifically, military and first responders who are already warriors, already really strong people, into even stronger versions of themselves as entrepreneurs and freelancers. I've also had the pleasure of working with a lot of entertainers. Stephen, who's on the call with me, who's also a member of my team, is an outstanding filmmaker, for example. I've worked with a lot of different types of people. Luz, who's also an entrepreneur, business owner, someone I've had the pleasure of working with. But the point is, no matter what you're setting out to do, there's going to be a certain amount of resistance wanting to keep you from that. And if we don't get the right perspective of what that resistance means, and we don't look at it in the right way, it's going to cause you to live in category number 2, right? Remember, you have two options with your life: live out your purpose and be happy, and take the the requisite amount of struggle that comes along with that. Which is what the wolf brings to your door, or distract yourself or numb yourself from the pain because you didn't pursue it. All right, and how do we distract ourselves? Well, people that just binge out on entertainment, right? I did a podcast. It's going to be out Saturday for those of you that follow my podcast. If you're not, you absolutely should. Maybe Stephen can find a link to that and put it on YouTube and Twitch as well. But the bottom line is the podcast is literally titled Fun is Overrated. And this was a conversation I had with my wife. It was actually, we shot it today. We recorded it today on our prayer walk. I wasn't going to do any podcast today. I was actually dealing with a good amount of depression yesterday. And I was just tired. Turns out it was not such a bad situation to be in. I think it was because some of the sleep supplements I've been taking, I think it just literally physically depressed me. And I felt the emotional effects of actually trying to sleep 8 hours a night, which isn't always easy for me. But the point is, you're going to find yourself in number 2, right? And number 2 means and I'm not saying that fun doesn't have its place, but the title is Fun is Overrated. Not that fun isn't important or fun is bad. It's that we value it too much. And the reason why we do that, I truly believe, is because we're not truly living out our purpose. We're not willing to go outside and fight the wolf. We're not willing to go out and fight the resistance, right? We're not willing to go out because the resistance, sadly enough, is there to make us stronger. The wolf isn't there to stop you and kill you. It's there to provide enough resistance for you to become the person who deserves to live up to your potential, right? And that's where we miss the boat and we get afraid. You know, Stephen asked me, was the wolf fear? Absolutely, the wolf is fear. It's the strongest form of resistance on the face of the planet. And I think it's what rips a lot of us apart. But, you know, how many Game of Thrones marathons and whatever other Netflix shows I can't think of the names of because I don't watch any of them, even though I know that's HBO. You know, or people who party all the time or have to go out or, you know, for a couple of years when I was at my darkest, I played an excessive amount of video games just trying to escape the reality that I was in because I felt like I was living out a living death and it was killing me. And it wasn't that I wasn't willing to fight the wolf. In my case, I didn't know how. I didn't even know the wolf existed. I thought I just was, you know, I thought I had lived out my usefulness, all right, because of a lot of depression. So a lot of you, it's not even that you're afraid of the wolf. Sometimes you don't even realize that what's happening to you is the wolf. It's not you. You are not the problem. All right, so I want to read a couple of things to you again from tonight's book. Links in Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. All right, so yeah, I saw that. Thank you very much. And let me check to see just in case did. Okay, where? Nope, they did not. All right, cool. Stay there. Make sure I have the chat windows open. So, and Heather says really quick, your last stream, and she puts half. So no, not my last stream. My last stream on YouTube. If you head on over to twitch.tv/Bryant Chambers, you're going to get 2 of these a week, basically. We're going to do Sundays at 6 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. All right, so definitely not my last stream, just my last hurrah on YouTube. All right, so you don't have to take a course or buy a product. All you have to do is change your mind. Turning pro is free, but it's not easy. When we turn pro, we give up a life that we may have become extremely comfortable with, hiding inside from the wolf. We give up a self that we have come to identify with and to call our own. Turning pro is free, but it demands sacrifice. The passage from amateur to professional is often achieved via an interior odyssey whose trials are survived only at great cost, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. We pass through a membrane when we turn pro. It's messy and it's scary. We tread in blood when we turn pro. What we get when we turn pro? What we get when we turn pro is we find our power. We find our will and our voice, and we find our self-respect. We become who we always were, but had, until then, been afraid to embrace and to live out. That, my friends, is the definition of the wolf. Stephen goes on to say, the thesis of this book is that what ails you and me has nothing to do with being sick or being wrong. What ails us is that we are living our lives as amateurs. And to change that, all you have to do is change your mind. Okay, so when I talk about going back to, and we'll come back to the book in a minute, but when we talk about the wolf is at the gate, right? And I think one of the things that I can't impress upon everybody enough is because the wolf isn't just your personal struggle. Like, there's a lot of things happening in the world right now. If you go back to my podcast where I talked about what America is going to look like in the next 100 years, well, if the two extreme poles of political discourse have their way, we're going to turn into a bunch of battling tribes, right? Because we're still behaving way too much like fearful animals and not like graceful human beings that we have turned into, and that I believe God created us to be. Right? So Lou says, I will miss you here on YouTube. Yeah, you guys don't have to. You guys don't have to miss me. Just twitch.tv, set you up an account. Takes you about 30 seconds. I think it's overall a better experience. I know my experience there has been a little bit better, but we'll get into some administrative discussion later. But you guys by no means have to not see what I'm doing. That's if you're willing to, join Twitch. I don't want to make anybody do that. If that's not your jam. But anyway, so many of you that I've worked with, and so many people that I've worked with in general, you know, in the bedrock of your soul, there's somebody there that's very powerful, right? The problem is you've had a lot of voices speak into those upper levels of your subconscious and conscious mind and convince you, sometimes against your will, but oftentimes with your permission, convince you that you're not adequate, that you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, what you want to do is delusional, etc., etc., etc. And I don't know that I've actually worked with anybody who's come to me. I don't think anybody I've worked with that I can think of off the top of my head came to me and was just completely, oh, dude, you're out in left field. What you want to do is ridiculous. Everybody is pretty rational with what they want to do. You've just been convinced by broken systems that what you want to do is ridiculous, right? And it's because you're talking to people who are afraid of their own failure, or they vicariously live through you, and your success is their success, and they can't abide to see you lose, so they want you to take the easy way out. In other words, they want you to give in to the wolf. If the wolf is at your door, the only way to deal with that wolf is, like I said, there's two ways. You can go outside and fight the wolf, and you're probably going to get bitten. You don't win that. You don't win the fight against the self-destructive part of your personality without some scars and some bruises. That's what Stephen was talking about, where anyone who's gone on this odyssey, whose trials are survived only at great cost emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. So you got two options. Either you become willing to go through that pain to overcome the wolf, and I'm going to get real interesting about the wolf here in a minute when you understand who he or she really is, right? You only get through it with a couple of scars. You're not going to walk it. It's like sending somebody to war and thinking they're just going to come home. War was kind of cool. It was awesome. Did a couple of things there, just came on back home. No, everybody that leaves combat leaves a casualty of war, even if you're not actually wounded or killed. And it's the same thing in you overcoming the challenges that you're facing in your life. So my encouragement to all of you, if you've not heard anything I've been saying on the internet for the past God only knows how many years now, it's time to decide whether or not you're going to go after what you want or not. And I made a kind of a declaration on Twitter that if you're not in the camp that's going to choose option number one, just don't waste your energy. Don't waste your energy following what I'm doing and paying attention to it. Because my content will only remind you of the pain that you're trying to distract yourself from, right? Or it's just going to annoy you because you now have let the wolf make you hide in the house, and now you're bitter watching your Game of Thrones marathon. And I pick on Game of Thrones a lot. I should probably find something else to talk about. I just use it because it's a staple of pop culture. Well, it is, and you can only numb yourself and distract yourself from your pain for so long. And I know from experience, guys, never, ever, 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 ever when I come on a microphone or camera am I speaking from a place of judgment. I'm speaking from a place of experience, of being where I'm encouraging you all not to go. Or if you're there, encouraging you to get out of it. None of it is designed. Zero of it is designed to judge you or to tear you down. Even when I'm being critical, It's designed to prune you, not to cut you. Right? And I'm telling you that if you have something that you want in your life, if it's something real, and it's something that you actually have to become somebody to achieve, and if it's not something where, if you just want a battle where you can win every time without any effort on your part, you're still, that's just as bad as the distraction. In fact, it's worse, because then you deceive yourself into thinking you're out there fighting the wolf, but you're really just still stuck in the house, too scared to pursue your dream. And what's the alternative? Like, do you really want to get to age 75 and be like, yo, I didn't even try? Yo, I didn't have enough attention span to watch, Jordan Peterson for a couple hours, or watch a couple of Joe Rogan's podcasts where he interviews really smart people and I can learn something, to watch my 69 Pillars of Success. What's that, Stephen, about 10 hours for all that content that's there? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For sure, yeah, and it really, it just comes down to, if you guys, and this is part of the reason why I started backing away from YouTube once I started to figure out, okay, not forever, because we're still going to make content there, but it's like we need to regroup because we're not getting across. Like, we're getting across to our core audience, our core audience of 400 to about 1,200 people out of the 40,000 that are subscribed to the work that we do, but the message is not being received. And so it's okay, I need to be in places where what I'm going to say is actually going to resonate, and it's actually got to catch people. Like, if you look at kind of the rules of communication and marketing, right? You have to entertain, then inform, then educate. And then here I come and I just slap everybody in the mouth and just start educating. It's like you're not respecting the platform, right? And I do that on purpose. Roberto Blake, I don't know if you saw my discussion with him on Twitter today, when he posted that video about what's the best social media platform for your business, right? And he got into a lot of details that I've been preaching at you guys for years, and I was glad that someone of his renown was saying it, because I'm like, okay, the people I'm not reaching now will hear it from somebody that they actually respect and revere and listen to. And I just I quoted that, but then I gave a practical example. I said, let me just give you a practical example of how I roll. I give exactly 0 F's about entertaining y'all. I'm not here to dance around like a monkey and make you smile for 5 minutes. I actually want warriors and leaders who want to go out and make a difference, right? And then I can empower you with the things, like, I've been out there, I've blazed the trail, I've been shot at, I've had bombs dropped on me, literally and figuratively. Right? So now I can bring that roadmap back and start helping you all actually become leaders in whatever market you find yourself in, as an entrepreneur, a freelancer, an artist. It doesn't matter, right? So my focus is not entertaining you, having bikini models playing basketball out behind my house. Like, it's legit. I'm here about business. And so the practical example I gave is that's why I don't F with Snapchat, because none of the people I'm trying to reach and empower and make stronger are bullshitting on Snapchat. How do I know that? Because I'm not. My business partner's not. The people who I'm designated to reach don't have time for that. Right? So my focus has been, I want to motivate even a small contingent of this generation to be like, you know what? We argue, we fuss, and we fight about a lot of nonsensical bullshit that nobody actually has the answers to. So instead of trying to point fingers at the world and blame the world for all my ills and all my pain, I start looking internally, right? It's like every family member or friend I have that complains about, these are the only 2 people we have to vote for. Yeah, and it's your fault. Because you'd have better politicians if you were a better person. It wouldn't be tenable for people like that to be your leaders if you were doing a better job of leading yourself, right? And so what I see is a lot of people, too many people, who they saw the wolf outside and like, I ain't going out there. I'm just going to watch Game of Thrones and complain about everybody else from my Twitter feed. That's not who I'm here for. Now, I also, very practically, getting out of the metaphor and talking very specifically, I am also very aware, very sympathetic, very empathetic to the idea of people having mental health challenges because I have them myself. Okay? I get that there are people literally who are so addled with some type of mental health illness that it's hard for them to leave their house. Right? So the wolf they're fighting is very much a different, it's like, dude, you're talking about getting over my own personal fears and my insecurities so I can go out there and kill it. Like, dude, going outside for me is the equivalent of having a heart attack. You don't understand how hard it is, and you're right. I don't understand, but I do empathize. But my suggestion to you is you better be talking to a doctor, right? Like, and I get that there's extenuating circumstances for some people where that's not even an option. I get it. But if it's an option for you, then get out and get the help you need, because maybe you need help fighting that initial wolf, which that's not a wolf of your creating. Right? That's not a wolf. And by the way, I tell my son, and I'll use an example from my personal life. My son, ADHD, dyslexia, and both he and I are going to get tested to see if we're on the spectrum for autism. My business partner seems to think that I might be. And he does it kind of jokingly with me because the way I see the world's kind of weird. But I want to know. And so he struggles. My son has a standard. If he wants to have Xbox time on the weekends, and he gets an hour a night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that's it. Right? To get that hour a night, he's got to read one chapter of an adult nonfiction book of his choosing, but from my library. And I got to get a summary. Now, because I understand he struggles with writing because of some of his challenges, I let him speak his summary out. And there's no exception to the rule, and he comes to me like, Dad, this is really hard for me to do because you know I have dyslexia. I said, yes. And because you have dyslexia, that means all your little soft-ass friends that are playing Fortnite for 7 hours a day are going to be nowhere near where you are spiritually, physically, emotionally, and successfully by the time you're 18. So when you're making $1 million a year at 18, if that's your dream, I'm not pushing that on him, and your friends are trying to figure out which fast food joint they're going to work at because they bullshitted for the last however many years, 8 years, then are you not going to be glad that you had dyslexia? Because that wolf of dyslexia forced you to become stronger than your friends had to be for you to get to your dream, right? It's just like, my story. I got abandoned by my father at birth. I don't get to use that as an excuse that I have trust issues, right? And I take things personally, that I don't get offended, and I don't, but I do sometimes take things personally and get into situations where I don't trust people all the time the way I should. Because I've been betrayed by a lot of people very close to me. And, and I've grown out of a lot of that, but it's still there. I don't get to make excuses for the wolf, but I'm at the point where I am not going to, there's a scripture in the Bible, I think it's where Paul talks about, I have to keep feeding you milk when I want to feed you meat. Raz says you wear that shirt a lot. How do you know I don't have like 3 of these shirts? I actually change into it. I wear different shirts than when I'm on camera. I wear this one. And I do wash my clothes, guys, just in case you're wondering. Yeah, well, even if I don't, I mean, what difference does it make? Right? Like, if I don't, it's none of y'all's concern. You're not sitting here smelling me. But the idea is, I need you all to understand that not only is there this metaphoric wolf of resistance and fear waiting outside to quote unquote devour your dreams, because the wolf can never devour you because the wolf is you, right? That's kind of the weirdness of the metaphor. The wolf is you overcoming yourself. Right? There's an ancient scripture that talks about the devil walks around like a roaring lion seeking who he may devour. Notice it says he walks around like a roaring lion, not a biting lion, right? So the wolf is all talk and no action. Now the wolf will bite, and it's going to hurt a little, but it can't kill you. That's the rules of the game. The wolf can never kill you. It's just you overcoming that part of yourself. That's not all your fault that you're like that. Some of it is, like I said, being born with challenges like my son with dyslexia, being born into situations where you develop mental health issues like me, or, you go to combat and develop them. But whatever your wolf is, you got two options. You can sit in the house and be afraid and just play Xbox and drink beer all night and get fat and feel terrible and then, get to age 50 and wish you had done something differently. Or you can grab the bull by the horns, take your shotgun outside and go ahead and have you a little spat with the wolf. Because what you learn after fighting the wolf, when you become willing to fight the wolf, is you can't lose. It's actually easier to beat than you think it is if you stay consistent. And then once you beat it, it's beaten. Now you get to go off, and this is who I'm looking for in the content that I produce, which is why I've never descended into using cheap marketing tactics to get people's attention. Because on the flip side of my life, I want it to be, he never used his helicopter. He never landed a helicopter outside of his house to make himself look rich, right? To get our attention so that he could sell us something. He's been kicking this knowledge from the jump, But the point is, I'm looking for those of you who are willing to fight the wolf, because I need help out here helping people fight the dragon. Okay, because after the wolf, there's a dragon. And the dragon is real fear, real suffering, collective suffering, fear, and all of the problems that we have on the earth. Everybody that's able is out there fighting the dragon, but you never get to get into the fight with the dragon until you're no longer too afraid to come out of your tent and fight the wolf that's at the gate, right? That's where that ancient scripture comes from, where it says the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few, right? There's very few people that choose to walk the narrow path because the narrow path has pain in it. But it also has, I was talking to a young kid recently who had gotten out of prison and was trying to get started over. And he was lamenting because he knew he had to work, he needed money. But he's like, I can't do a regular job. I said, well, wait a minute. He's like, I just feel like going back to the streets. I said, well, do you understand that all the stuff you learned on the streets is the same stuff we do in legitimate business? Just change the business model. I said, because here's the slick part is the business you're in on the streets makes you a lot of money up front, but there's a very low ceiling. And that low ceiling comes with a lot of other problems and risks, to include death, depending on how deep you get into the streets. I said, when you're doing legitimate business, like people like me, it takes you a little bit longer to get to that success, but there's no ceiling. You could be Jeff Bezos and live in a freaking flying saucer with strippers or whatever it is. I have no idea what he does with his life. Yeah, I mean, and truth be told, like what I'm looking at doing in my company is hiring people exactly like that. Because I was talking to my wife about that. I said, not only do I believe people like that deserve a second, third, maybe even a fourth chance, they deserve a real chance to shine. Not just this, because a lot of what gets these young cats in trouble isn't that they're just evil people to the core, despite what turn the news off, guys, Jesus Christ. Or, political propaganda would teach you, is that these kids are actually exceptional. And they're growing up in a bullshit system, and they figure it out by the time they're 6. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, why do I need to get A's on this algebra test? Like, there's, you know what I mean? Like, they never learn how to assimilate when it's necessary so that they can then go shine. Because remember, nobody likes anybody that shines too bright. Because then, everyone loves the warrior in a small village when the wolf's at the door. Right? When the wolf's at the door, yeah, the warrior, hey, get out there and fight him, dog. But when the wolf's gone and everybody's prosperous, now the warrior's a threat. And some of you that are younger, maybe you haven't experienced this yet in the business world. Sometimes being really good and really smart can become a liability. Because if you're too good and too smart in certain situations, especially if you're working at a place that doesn't necessarily need your skill set, please avoid that with all of your soul. Like if you're doing there was this study that was done, I can't remember how many years ago it was, like 16 or 17, where they did a study on what's called bullshit jobs. And I think like up to 40% of our country has those types of jobs where you're just basically a number in a company and you're doing whatever the work is to keep the machine running, but you're not really necessary, and certainly your skill set is not. Um, it's very much these young guys are not wired for that. And if they show up and they're awesome, your tribe is going to ostracize you. Like, well, wait a minute, why was I saw the warrior eyeing my wife up last night, and all the warrior was doing was saying, "Good evening, Mrs. Johnson. I hope everything's well." Because you got to remember, the spirit of a true warrior is a protector, not an aggressor. We're aggressive because we have to be, and you want us aggressive. But then they want you to take your swords and put them away and your guns once the war is over, as if that's ever a thing, because now we're comfortable. And so you can get into companies where they're very comfortable. I remember years and years ago, I had a boss tell me, "Why are you trying to work so hard?" It's like that episode of the Chappelle Show when they did the Mad Real World, where it was the white guy living with all the black guys, and they were at the Jamba Juice, and he kept telling them, like, "Guys, we got to work." And Charlie Murphy's like, "Man, what you want to work so hard for, man? Come here, play dice with us." And it was like, I worked in a place that was like that. It was like, "Slow down, dog. Why are you working so hard? Why are you trying to look good?" Right? And so these kids grow up early in their life, they're probably exceptional in some way, but in a way that gets them ostracized by the group. Like, I told a joke, and this was with family, and I was like, I can tell I'm weird. I told a joke about how, if anybody who's married to a woman. Now, I don't know how this exactly works in like a same-sex marriage between two women, but if it's a man married to a woman, I can guarantee you this has happened, where the woman says, "Yo, I remember when I told you fill in the blank," and that conversation never happened. But the woman knows for a fact that this conversation happened. Remember, women statistically, it's not even, I can't even quite say statistically, but it's debatable that women are more emotionally and communicatively strong than men are, right? So my wife will imagine this conversation and think very deeply and feel the emotions of having it, but not actually have it with me. And so in her mind, remember, your physiology can't tell the difference between what's really happening to you and an imagination. And so I made a joke where I said, I think what's really happening, because I don't know a husband who hasn't experienced his wife being upset because I told you about that. It's like, dude, that conversation. And then the joke is always, because it can never be the man, it can never be the woman who's absent-minded. Well, you're just a man. You don't listen anyway. Like, okay, I'm telling you that conversation never happened. But what I said was, what I think is really happening is women have started the next phase of evolution before men. And what's happening is the multiverse is real, and there's infinite amounts of my wife Miko. And in some other dimensional reality, that conversation did happen between her and me as her husband. But she is somehow subconsciously connected to all these other women. So in her reality, the conversation did happen, right? So it's a completely cerebral, nerdy, not funny joke. And my whole family was just like, what? How did you even come up with that stupidity? Like, is that what you sit around and think about? So when you study enough psychology books, like even your humor gets really, really nerdy, right? And so the point there being, and I remember that the rest of that conversation centered on, we got into a political discourse where I was trying to explain to some of my family members that they were having a very emotional reaction to something that they didn't like in politics. And they just thought, no, I'm being totally rational. I said, no, you're not. Your reaction is 100% emotional. And trying to explain how the brain worked. And I hear all that. Like, you're science. Go sit down. You're just wrong. Like, okay. Right? And so you can become, now I'm with family, so I'm not at any risk in that case. But imagine having that conversation with a bunch of coworkers. Immediately you're going to be like, don't invite the Brian guy to the happy hour because he's going to bring up the stupid cross-dimensional stuff again. So you can get so good that the world around you starts to be like, ugh, right? Like, look at all the people that hate LeBron James. What in God's name did, I'll meet, and this usually happens with men. Women are, they're not any less petty than men in a lot of ways. They're just not petty in the same ways. And so LeBron James does this press conference when he announces, this is years ago, it was like 2010 or 11. And he announces that he's, leaving to go to some other team. And men are like, yo, I hate LeBron James. I'm like, word, you hang out with him? Is he not cool? Well, no, you know what I mean, bro. Like, no, how do you hate him? Well, You know what I'm saying? No, I literally don't know what you're saying. Why do you hate a person you've never met in real life? Well, because he's arrogant. Oh, word? You spent time talking to him? No, you know he did that press conference. I'm like, the press conference where the proceeds went to charity? Where he was kind of goaded into doing that by a bunch of media companies because they knew they'd make a ton of money off of it. That press conference? Well, yeah, he's arrogant. Like a good athlete wouldn't, like, really? Your life's so amazing. You're finding really success. Like, they don't. We like people to be successful to a point when our perception of ourselves is that we're not very strong. Right? So it's very much, I want very much for all of you to make up in your minds that it doesn't matter what happens as a result. And kind of the end of that point was, I'm working with these young people who society's told them that they're, a waste. I see through that. I spend time with these guys. I'm like, this dude isn't a waste. This dude's a freaking genius. He just needs to point his genius in a way that'll actually be beneficial to society. And going back to what you were saying, Stephen, like one of the things I'm thinking about over time is hiring people like that. Like I can see the potential in, and helping them get in some cases they need some help. They may have some mental health issues and stuff, but it's very much something that I want to do. What were you getting ready to say, dude? Uh-oh, did I lose Stephen? Let's check the broadcast here. It sounded like you were going to say something. Was that you? Mm. Mm. Wow. Wow. And I say wow, but it's not actually surprising to me. Whereas I think there are certainly criminals who are just, psychopaths who didn't really have a whole lot of help outside of some type of in-depth rehabilitation that didn't involve being locked in a cage. That's another thing that America needs to fix. But I find that a lot of people one of my mentors was locked up a number of times. One of my most significant mentors in my entire life. I don't remember how many times he was locked up. Actually, matter of fact, the two most pivotal mentors in my life that are not my blood. They don't hear you on Twitch? Well, daggum, let's get that fixed. Yeah, that's weird. Hold on. Yeah, we're not hearing you on Twitch, and I don't know what. Well, but no, we should be hearing you. There's no reason why we shouldn't be. It's not on you. It's on my end. So give me a sec. Um, no, no, no. You're not. We're not connected on YouTube at all. But the PC audio should be running through. Let me just do this. Yeah. Hold on. Audio output. Let's try. Let's try this. Say something. Nope, nope. But it's still definitely on my end. Thank you for whoever pointed that out. Thank you for saying so. Let's go. Okay, now they should be able to hear you. That's on me. That's a configuration issue. Yeah. Now my system is saying that you're broadcasting. If they can't hear you, then that's a whole separate issue. Yeah, if they can't hear you now, it's because they're it's on them because yeah, they just Natalie said she can hear me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. That's outstanding, man. Yeah, yeah. Post it. I think it'll be helpful for people. Well, that's what number two. So in the beginning, we talked about you have two choices in life. The second choice is suicide. It just takes longer. It's not like somebody horribly killing themselves. It's you're gonna kill yourself with Game of Thrones marathons over the next 40, 50, 60, 70 years, depending on I know people watch of all ages, but some of these people that have heard me are in their teens, and they're gonna spend 70, 80 years slowly killing themselves with entertainment. And I'm not saying that entertainment is killing people. What I'm saying is anything done and not kept in its proper place is not good for you. Period. Like you can only that's what the podcast on Saturday is all about for you. I mean, it's already happened to me, but it's all about is this, because even my wife didn't fully understand what I was saying. She's like, "Well, why are you saying fun's overrated? I think fun's very important." I said, "No, no, no. I didn't say fun and entertainment wasn't important. What I'm saying is specifically in Western culture, we overvalue it. And it's because we use it to run from the mundanity and the suffering we're going through in our lives, which can be healthy. Like, I watched way more entertainment after my dad passed away because I needed to escape from that horrible pain. But at some point, I got to get back up on the effing horse and get back on mission. Otherwise, I'm gonna get visited by my dad's ghost. Like, hey, Negro, what's going on? And you just, I'm gone. So get busy. You got work to do because you need to make good on everything I gave you, right? But in the moment when I'm still mourning, that's fine. But if I then use my father's passing as an excuse to just go hide in the house from the wolf and only listen to entertainment, because I came back pretty quick to doing this stuff. People were actually surprised, like, dang, he's only been gone a week. Like, well, because I need this. Like, I needed to be back. I mean, these types of encounters, when we have really meaningful ones, guys, it's what gets me out of bed every day. I'd have been dead a long time ago if it wasn't for a lot of what I've been able to do and people I've been able to connect with to give back what's been given to me. So those are things to think about. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go back to the book real quick. So you'll get a kick out of this one, Stephen, because you've heard me talk about it at length in our coaching programs. You should have let that ride. You should have just been like, yeah, I'm totally Stephen Pressfield. Brian's got that kind of clout. He has Stephen Pressfield wasn't busy on a random Thursday night. All right, so shadow careers. Sometimes when we're terrified of embracing our true calling, we'll pursue a shadow calling instead. That shadow career is a metaphor for our real career. Its shape is similar. Its contours feel tantalizingly the same. But a shadow career entails no real risk. If we fail at a shadow career, the consequences are meaningless to us. Now, I will submit to all of you that the shadow career is actually worse than the 70-year death just chilling out to Game of Thrones. Because in the shadow career part, and by the way, a shadow career is still hiding inside your house from the wolf. In the shadow career, you've then tricked yourself into thinking that you're making progress towards your purpose, but you're not. I mean, guys, that's what my whole all this time I've spent, and I've talked about it enough. I don't want to talk about it anymore. People are either going to get it or they're not. With my private coaching program, the whole premise of what we talk about in there is helping you discover what your actual purpose is, and then me giving you the tools so that you can go out there. And they're not my tools. Some of them are things that I've created, but they're through experience, and they're derived from people way smarter than me and people who've been through thousands of years ago. These people figured out a lot of the crap that we're going through today, right? So it's predicated on helping people find that purpose. And this book is actually mandatory reading in my program, because too many of us, we pursue these shadow careers. Like, oh, I remember back when I was working, and I enjoyed my job at that time, but I remember saying, man, I can't wait till I'm making six figures. That's when everything's going to be great. Like, really? Like, is my vision really that small? Now I'm talking about, eventually, not hoarding billions of dollars, but bringing billions of dollars in from the work that I do so that I can put it back out into the world to help people. Right? So that shadow career, I remember when I started making six figures years and years and years ago, and I was miserable. It was like the worst time, darkest time of my life, pretty much. Outside of the time when my dad passed away, that was pretty dark too. But it was it didn't bring with it any of the joy that I thought it would, because it wasn't tied to, I was basically whoring myself out for the money. Now, obviously, I was doing stuff that was very legal, but it went against my values. It went against who I was as a person, and I felt like I wasn't contributing, and I was, borderline suicidal. And I say borderline because I never really was like, oh, I never made a plan to actually like kill myself. But I would think about, maybe if I was gone, my family would have insurance money, and then I don't have to feel like I don't have to feel worthless anymore, right? So all the things that I'm trying to share with you guys are to help you avoid that level of suffering, because it's not necessary. You don't have to get to that point before you decide that you're going to go be willing to face the wolf. And I think one of the things that's exhausted me on the internet in my work is that somehow in the way that I've communicated, and I blame it all, it's not blaming, but I hold myself responsible because by and large, I think I have not been a good enough communicator to help get this point across tonight. That's why I wanted to make tonight kind of a special talk for the YouTube folks, because I know a number of you will not follow me over to Twitch, and that's okay. All right. You won't come on to the live calls we'll do in the future, and that's okay. You guys got other stuff to do. I know a lot of people have different, like, I'm not coming to Snapchat. It's like until like it, yes. Yeah, no, and you bring up a really good point. I want to be careful not to scare people because some of you are still figuring out what this purpose is, right? Like you don't necessarily know. You may be experimenting with it because someone even mentioned in the comments that a shadow career can be strategic, can be used strategically as a stepping stone to a life where we're meant. So some of you are still figuring out what that purpose is, right? And again, going back to the coaching program that I talk about, the coaching program is designed to help you accelerate that knowledge, and that's the first part of it. Then it's okay. Now, what do you need to do with that knowledge, right? So it's about helping you. We have a system that helps you start to hone in on and figure it out. Now, it may not mean you have everything boiled down to an exact mission, because I think, you know, I was joking with my business partner earlier. Today was his birthday, and I was just saying, yo, I think if God told us the whole, like, some of the reasons why I think life is a mystery is because that's what gives us the sense of adventure. It's fun. It wouldn't be any fun if you woke up like at the age of consciousness and like God just came and said, okay, listen, you're gonna do like 86 things first, then you're gonna mow your lawn. Like if it was just handed to you like that, there wouldn't be any sense of discovery, no sense of adventure. And I think human beings are drawn to adventure. I mean, look at all the movies you guys watch. Do you understand why the Avengers is so dope to everybody? It's because a lot like Greek mythology. Hell, one of the characters is a freaking Greek god, for crying out loud. it's it's so tantalizing because these superhuman people are who we see ourselves as. We're all in the back of our mind the hero of our story. The problem is society told you that that's arrogance and pride. And the people that told you that it was arrogance and pride were folks that were too scared to fight their own wolves, right? That you're not, just be humble and like, because no, and I always boil humans into three categories. You're either sheep, a sheepdog, or a wolf, right? Sheep are the folks that just, sheep are certainly the folks that just stay in the house and avoid the wolf. Then there's the wolf. Now I'm getting out of the kind of the figurative overcoming resistance, but there are people who mean you harm, and then there's people like me who live to stand between both of you that tell the wolf, if you even get close enough to one of my people, I'm gonna rip all your fangs out by hand and dig them into your skull, right? It's that's where I make the joke about, me being 80% Jesus Christ and 20% Genghis Khan, where I am as happy-go-lucky and loving and merciful and kind and graceful as they come till you F with one of my people. And actually, we were having that discussion on the podcast. I don't remember which one it was with my wife. Listen, if a zombie apocalypse happened, I think people would see me as a very different dude. You'd see a lot more of that Genghis Khan character. Because if you look at like a show like The Walking Dead, where people are just out doing dirt, please. Like, I would sleep like a baby after shooting one of those guys in the mouth. Like, just, hey, how many people you shoot today? 6 or 7. Because that's what's necessary in order for the people you care about to survive. But when you're not in that environment, obviously you don't want to be that monster. But sometimes that sheepdog is necessary. And there's a great book by another one, a guy that I consider a mentor, who I reached out to a couple years ago after I read his books, and he was really cool. He talked about how sheep don't like the sheepdog because the sheepdog looks like the wolf. The difference between the sheepdog and the wolf is we live to protect, and we would never hurt the sheep, right? We guide the sheep and we protect the sheep. Now sometimes we got to say something to the sheep that they don't like because we see they're about to get eaten by the wolf, right? But when the wolf comes around, the sheep love the sheepdog. And that's for all of you who are going to decide to be sheepdogs and decide to take up your cross and decide to actually pursue your life's purpose and live a life of meaning, which I think is your moral obligation, like Dr. Peterson says. If you decide to do that, then you become the sheepdog. Just understand that the rest of the sheep are going to bitch about it. That's what sheep do. They're fearful, not very great little animals. And I don't obviously mean to boil down humanity into something that, basic or ridiculous. But if you're going to decide to go after what you want, remember, sometimes the resistance isn't just going to be the wolf, it's going to be some of the people in your own village. And those people in your village, their voices become a part of the wolf. And eventually you got to decide whose voice you're going to listen to, yours, God's, or you're going to listen to people that don't want you to win, because if you win, you change, and then you become somebody, you become a potential threat to our comfort. I'm telling you right now, if you guys have dreams as big as they should be, you're going to have a lot of discomfort, and you're going to become willing to go through a lot of discomfort. Like me and my wife joked, because today we shot Saturday's podcast. Yesterday during our workout, she worked herself out to the point she was kind of embarrassed that I shared it. And I said, "You shouldn't be embarrassed. It's a badge of honor." She worked out to the point where she threw up. Now, I am not the type of trainer who pushes people beyond their ability. She pushed herself, especially when someone's like, she's just getting back into more hardcore working out. She's been walking and stuff and doing that, but she's been doing more of my workouts. But with someone who's just getting back into it, I don't ever like yell or push, like keep going. I just let them kind of find their limits. And then eventually I start to gently, because pro tip for anybody here that wants to be a personal trainer, you killing your clients on the first meeting because you think that's what's going to make them come back, you're going to lose a lot of clients that way. Because they're going to have so much pain in the workout without a whole lot of payoff very quickly. Especially, you got to remember, a lot of folks that are coming to you to be trained are probably looking for results faster than they're really going to happen. Right? And so you got to take them on the journey. But, I was proud of her. Like, she worked through it, and she kept working. She did her thing and then got right back on the horse. Was like, all right, let's keep going. It's part of the reason why I'm so attracted to her, because she's a freaking warrior. But the point being, you're going to have to be willing to go through some of that discomfort in order to become who you're going to have to become to live out whatever your dream is. And I will reiterate that if you are not, and I'm speaking to myself too, guys, I'm not just preaching, all right? If you're not willing to do that, you probably don't want to be around me on social media. It's one of the reasons why, like, I don't go on Snapchat. It's took me forever to get on Instagram. But then I learned that there are uses to Instagram that are very, very powerful. I've, in the very short term, been able to help a good number of people because of my interactions with them on Instagram. But like I was saying to Roberto Blake, you also have to, going back to what I was saying a moment ago, to what Steven said, I don't want to push you or pressure you into thinking you have to have all of your purpose figured out right now today. If you don't have that figured out, I've got programs you can go through, free stuff, and I have the paid private coaching too, which goes into way more depth. But there are systems that you can use to start to figure it out. So just because you don't have everything figured out doesn't mean you're in your house cowering from the wolf. I want to be very clear about that. Those of you who aren't sure, like there's like 6 different things you may want to pursue. That doesn't mean that they're all shadow careers and you need to figure out exactly which one is the one. And until you do, you're hiding in the house from the wolf. Not true. Okay, I need to be very clear about that. If you got 6 things that you think you might be good at, this is what I actually coached a person through this recently, when I was still doing live private coaching with people. I coached them through it. I think there was 3 or 4 things they wanted to pursue. So I said, okay, tell me what the number 1 thing is, because you know what the number 1 thing is. You do. Like, you got 4 things that you're kind of curious about, but there's always one that stands out if I pressure you into it, or if I not pressure you into it. Like if I just apply a little bit of pressure, you'll be like, yeah, I know it's this one. Right? I say, okay, so that's the top one. Then you take the other 3. You spend 80% of your time that you're not sleeping or eating or taking care of yourself. 80% of your time is spent on priority 1. 20% of your time is spent on priorities 2, 3, and 4. And in the process of doing that, you will inevitably, it's like investing your money, where you don't want to just invest in one stock. You want to diversify your portfolio, right? It's the same thing with figuring out your purpose. You might want to experiment with a couple of things. Like I experimented for years with music. And for a time, I thought it was legitimate. But then it became a shadow career, because what I realized was happening with me as a writer is I was writing to music the things that I wanted, that I'm saying to you all here. But in songs, I get maybe a minute to express a 16-bar verse that I wrote, right? I can't sum up this whole talk in 16 bars or even in an album. It would be hard to condense everything I'm talking about into an album, right? And I just learned that I can be a very entertaining person. and I do enjoy some level of being entertaining. But my goal was I wanted to entertain, but I wanted to grab the attention of the person and propel them forward. And I learned from a good friend in the music industry, two good friends, or one friend and one mentor, that what I'm trying to do is not really attainable. He was like, you need to get into doing more public speaking and stuff like that, because what you were trying to do and what your audience wants, they're at odds. Like when they come to listen to your music, they want to listen to your music and be entertained and be it's escapism. He was basically explaining to me, he's like, dude, music, he's like, you're the only nerd that listens to the words and actually takes something from them the way that you do. Not that songs can't be inspiring, because they can, but he's just like, what you're trying to do, music, dog, nah. Like, if you enjoy it, fine, keep doing it. But that was the same kind of principle I had with okay. um, that was the kind of the same approach where I said I failed you guys, or came up short on YouTube, because I went straight to the meat without the entertainment piece, and I think in a lot of ways that hurt me, because I was unwilling to make the here are 10 things I did that made me $1 million in my lifetime. I could shoot that video. I could shoot that video right now. Here's 10 things I did that made me $1 million. Let's see, off the top of my head, went to war, won. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could come up with a list like that, because I understand the kind of fast food success that sheeps that don't want to leave their house want. But I refused to play into that. And it cost me attention, because I wasn't willing. I just felt like making that video will get me a ton of attention, but it won't. And then maybe it acts as a gateway drug to something else. And that was where I didn't fully win. Was I made some kind of gateway drug content to shuffle people into other stuff, and it just something about the way that I produced just didn't work out on YouTube. And I take responsibility. I don't blame algorithms or the viewers or any of that crap. It's about me, because I know the stuff I watch on YouTube. I watch a lot of it, and it's mostly educational. But going back to the original point, I don't want you all to think that because you don't have it all figured out that you're cowering, in your house hiding from the wolf. And I'm not saying that if you like Game of Thrones, I do watch entertainment too, but I prioritize it properly. I think, at least for me, what I'm trying to do. Because I do think entertainment has its place, but I think any wise person will tell you that every really successful person values education over entertainment. Sitting down and watching Jordan Peterson talk for 3 hours isn't necessarily entertaining in the classical sense. It entertains me, because what entertains me mostly more than anything else is intellectual stimulation. So I find it very hard to watch certain things if I'm not being stimulated. A lot of times I feel like I'm just like, I tried to watch last night when I was kind of going through the grips of depression. My wife was like, dude, I think it's time to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Let's go. And she knows it's like it's like my fifth favorite movie of all time. And unfortunately, so I tried to watch 40-Year-Old Virgin. And I got, maybe 20 minutes into it before I was just like, this isn't funny. I went back to watching Jordan Peterson. It's just like, I can't. I get that this movie's supposed to be hilarious. And maybe it was because if I was in a happier state, it would have been funnier. That's not true. I tried to watch Cat Williams, and I love Cat Williams. It just wasn't clicking. But it's because the more I grow and the more I learn, I'm so hungry, guys, to know things. And that's why everything that I've done here, I've framed it as a conversation instead of me speaking the absolute truth, because I don't always know. I don't always know what that is. I'm framing it as a conversation, and when I get better educated, the talks will get better. What did you want to say, Stephen? Yeah. Right. That'll do it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. And that's a good point. And for the folks on YouTube that can't hear you, excuse me. Basically, Stephen was walking through one of the wolves that he's been fighting lately is going and getting his health checked out because the fear of the unknown. Like you don't want to hear something, but the craziness is that that's the devil walking around like the roaring lion. Like the lion is roaring at you and making you afraid to do what you know you have to do. And what the truth is, because the YouTube world, and it looks like my YouTube stream started being funky, but now it's back to normal. All right, let's see. Christy Piper says, yes, about the sheep not liking the sheepdog until they absolutely need us. And the wolves can wear the sheep's clothing and blend in. Yeah. But only the sheepdog sees it at first. Christy goes on to say, thanks for sharing your story with us. I can relate to realizing people want escapism, not the real content. I wanted to educate women about important societal issues via romance novels. Interesting. That's one way to do it. Heather Myers says, to each their own. Everyone may be on different paths, but if you have the same destination, that's your tribe. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and that's a good point. And to be very very clear about my comments about escapism, like I'm not blaming music for my inability to convey, or blaming YouTube or the audience for why I didn't reach that level of resonance that I was kind of looking for. I really attribute it to me just needing to know more. I think I held back a lot in ways because I was afraid to say things that I was thinking because of what it might cost me. So if I really was to look at why did I not reach more people, I really hold myself responsible for that. But I also had to start thinking about, okay, let's be realistic. Going back to what I said, where you're kind of discovering yourself, I had to ask myself, like specifically with YouTube, am I particularly, in and of myself, am I particularly compelling in video? And the answer is, well, live shows like this, sure, while I'm here with you, because it feels like a conversation. But people watching this after the fact, most people don't, right? And I think part of it is my strength is in the speaking. But then that's an excuse too, because you look at someone like Dr. Peterson, he's got millions of people paying attention to what he's doing. And I'm not trying to compare myself to him like I'm on his level, because that's insane. But what I'm saying is he was able to do exactly what I'm talking about doing and really get. And certainly he was helped by a lot of controversy. There was a lot of things that happened with him that got him a ton of attention that I'm grateful that I didn't go through. I wouldn't want to go through his hell to get his millions of followers. Because, I mean, you're talking about a guy that almost lost his job over standing up for what he believed in. And then the blessing was he didn't lose his job, at least not back then. And he got millions of followers in the process. So, there's obviously a way to do it. I just never really, and I knew that my strength was in talking with people. It's even why I stopped doing online coaching like this, like Steven and I are doing right now, where you can hear us, because I just know I'm stronger in person. Like I know a podcast is a place where I have a lot more, at least for today, strength. And like I said, we've got a show called uh, 3PS that I'm doing the concept for now, and some military veteran based stuff that I want to bring to YouTube at some point. The time's just not now. But hey, I wanted to be clear with that. I'm not at all saying that my music didn't catch on because music and people want escapism. No, whatever I was saying just didn't have the, or the music that I was producing didn't have the gravitas that it should because I lacked the skill. Let's see. Um, Raz says getting a diagnosis can be freeing. It's like, great. There isn't anything wrong with me. There's just something wrong with Yeah, like when I was diagnosed with some of my issues, over the last couple of months, it was surprising. One of them I kind of pushed back on, but it was because of my ignorance, not because like I don't want that. It was like, how could you say that about me? And when the doctor explained to me what it actually meant versus my ridiculous perception because of my ignorance, I was like, oh yeah, totally have that, totally. I got 3 of those. Let's get it. So it was. Um, it just, it. But going back to what Stephen was saying is, the wolf had him scared, but now what I'm saying to him is, the wolf is actually trying to keep him from getting the help he needs. Because in the bottom line, guys, in this whole metaphor, the reason why the wolf is at your door is because he's actually scared of you, and he is on his last leg. Meaning, if he can't stop you from getting out of the door, he knows he's finished. So if he can keep you in the house, that's the only way he wins, because he knows if you come outside, that's an ass whooping. I have a recurring nightmare, and I've had it since I was a child because it's something and I want to be careful in how I say this because eventually he's going to listen to this and be like, I destroyed my little brother. It's not what I mean. Because it's something my brother did. I experienced something at a way younger age than I should have. And I'll tell you what it is. It's not like a secret. But I have had a recurring nightmare because of it into adulthood. Right? It was so my brother, and other people may be able to handle this better than me, because I'm sure someone on the internet would be like, he's a pussy. Maybe I am. I remember I was probably about 7, and I had come home from school. My brother had all the lights out, and he had Nightmare on Elm Street playing on the TV in the back room. And I went in there and saw a bunch of the imagery and was very scared of that movie. And no 7-year-old should be watching that movie. It just shouldn't be allowed. And then he jumped out and scared me. Now, my brother was just the catalyst. He wasn't the cause, because I went on to watch Nightmare on Elm Street movies religiously as a child. I was way too young to be watching that stuff. And I slept with my parents until I was 11, because I was terrified. No, I'm sorry, till I was 9. No 9-year-olds should still be sleeping in the bed with their parents. And then I had recurring nightmares of dealing with Freddy Krueger. And I read I don't remember what something I think from Buddha. And it might have been Bruce Lee or something, but it was along the lines of the demon that you're facing in your dreams. Basically, the way whoever said it broke it down, it's like, it's actually you. When you have those dreams, you're actually fighting a part of yourself, and it's very interesting. When I say recurring nightmare, I don't mean I have them every night, but I still do have them. I had one the other night where it's, I don't know if you guys know about lucid dreams, but I am able to do that with a great deal of frequency and yeah. It is trippy, and I developed the ability as a survival mechanism because of these nightmares, because the nightmares were so horrific. And if you've ever had those moments in your life where your brain wakes up before your body does and you can't move, picture then visualizing Freddy Krueger coming to get you when you can't move. And so I developed a defense mechanism of being able to control my dreams, and I am able to control a lot of my dreams. And so Fred comes in the room, and like, I have developed to the point where whenever I sense that I'm having that type of dream, I'm in between REM sleep and being awake. Like, I'm coming out of REM sleep, basically. So I know what's happening. And anytime I sense Fred coming, I just go and attack him. Like, the dreams have literally become Fred. Like, hey man, I was just stopping by to borrow some sugar, and then I chop his head off. Like, seriously, man. Like, I'll just repeatedly murder Freddy Krueger in my dreams. Right? Like, it becomes like before, because it used to be him attacking me as a child, and I would take these horrible murders basically because I used to watch these movies as a kid, and I turned it into. And so what I mean is, it's a dream. Like, the wolf can't actually beat you, and the wolf knows if I can scare you, if that subconscious part of you that's afraid to fail, afraid to have your ego bruised, afraid to be rejected, afraid to be abandoned, all those things you were afraid of that don't actually exist because they're not real, if they can scare you into not taking action, then they win. Because the minute your feet hit the ground, the fight is over. You've already won, even though you're going to take a bite or two. But what's a bite, man? It's nothing. It's nothing that you can't handle. And I'm telling you, because I've been on both sides of this. Like, one of the quotes I love that a guy was in a coaching session said, he's like, I want to get so bad that when I wake up, the devil's like, oh shit, he's awake. Here he comes, right? And that's how I got in my dreams. With, like, Fred's like, hey man, I just was here. I'm not trying to cause no trouble. Please don't chop my head off again. And, you know, these are the things that you go through. But I tell that story not to tell you about my crazy psychological craziness, but it's to help you understand that I finally got to a place in my dreams where the only reason I'm getting beat up in my dreams is because I'm allowing it. I'm in control. The wolf has nothing. Because as soon as I step, and the funny thing is, what some of you are going to realize is you won't get bitten by the wolf, because you realize the wolf is so powerless. When you finally walk outside the house, you're going to find a little puppy there. And it's like, dang, that's what I was afraid of. You know, or you'll get some rejection, right? The thing you're afraid of, you'll get a little rejection, or you'll get a little, you know, not immediate success, and you realize, oh, this isn't actually as bad. Like, I remember one of my, because I very rarely have a bad talk when I give talks, but I had one that went south, and I remember I'm up there bombing. Well, for one person, the show was awesome for everybody else. I was bombing for one person. Or like, even as a musician, I had a show where I totally just sucked, like so bad my bandmates were like, oh my God, not a single note that came out of that dude's mouth was right. Like, ugh. And then after the show, they just say, hey, tough set, man, hang in there. And then a kid came up to me and asked me for my autograph after I butchered every song. And it just goes to show you, like, oh, it's actually not as, you're up there bombing, you just own it and you keep it moving. Let's see, Raz says, tip for you be avoid magnesium late in the day. It causes vivid dreams. Interesting. What types of foods have magnesium in them? Because I'm certainly not eating magnesium by itself. What type of food am I eating that has magnesium in it? Heather, your father was a torturer. That's cruel. Nuts are high in magnesium. That would explain a lot. Because usually before bed, I eat keto peanut butter fudge balls that I make. And I've switched over to cashew butter now instead of peanut butter. And I would usually... Oh, 100% cashews. It's not even close. I would eat peanut butter just because it's cheaper. Or it's easier to find. I'm not so much worried about the price, but... yeah, the challenge is the cashew butter I used for this batch. It's very, very, very natural. Like, I've made cashew butter that doesn't taste this outdoorsy. I'm like, who made this? Like, the cashew butter I make myself tastes better than this. So I had to doctor it up with some vanilla extract and other things. But interesting. So nuts are high in magnesium. So my keto fudge balls, I need to keto peanut butter, or now cashew butter fudge balls, are high in magnesium. It's good to know. But yeah, so here we go. No, that's the chapter on being addicted to sex. I will let you all read that chapter. Let's see. Let's see. We can't escape intimations and half memories of what? Some prior sojourn before birth, perhaps, among the mortals or the stars. Our lot instead is to dwell here in the lower realm, the sphere of the temporal and the material, the time bound dimension of instincts and animal passions, of hate and desire, aspiration and fear. You and I are called to the upper realm, and it is calling to us. But we're having a pretty good time sometimes down here in the sphere of the senses. Bottom line, we're marooned in the middle, stuck inside of a mobile with the Memphis Blues again. You know, and that's a really interesting piece here. The pain of being human is that we're all angels imprisoned in vessels of flesh. You know, and really, guys, at the core, and I'll shut up and start taking questions or see if Stephen has something he wants to add. But the core thing that you've got to get focused on with the wolf at the door is you have to want something bad enough that you're willing to go out, because you're not going to go outside. You're not going to turn off Game of Thrones for a slightly better life, for a $5 raise. It's not going to happen. You have to set a goal that's nearly, you know, seemingly impossible but doable, right? And it has to be something that you deeply, deeply desire. Because truly, if you don't have that, you don't have the inertia, you don't have the momentum, you don't have the driving force of will to propel you to it. You also need to imagine what hell feels like for you, especially if you're living there now. Because hell is one hell of a motivator to get you to start running in the right direction. And many of you have lived through some type of living hell. I know I have. And I never want to go back there. And I never want to get to the place that if I were to stay in the house and be afraid of the wolf, I never want to get to the place where that'll lead me in 5 years or a decade. Because that situation will be worse than death. So I need you all to develop a desire to run toward the good and a desire to run away from your own personal hell. And if you're willing to do that, I would recommend and encourage you all to stick around, because I've got a lot of things to say on future live streams, future podcasts that are going to be very, very beneficial to you as a person, to your soul, but ultimately to the reason why I come on these calls for you guys is that I'm hoping that out of however many of you are listening, there's at least a handful of you that will take on the mantle of leadership. Not only to lead and direct your life in the way it should go, but to prepare yourself to go out and not only defeat the wolf that's held you in that hellish house of fear and anxiety, but so that you can get out, help other people fight the wolves out in front of their house, and then get up here with us and help us fight the dragons that are holding the world captive. That's been the mission from the jump here, guys. And I really appreciate you taking this journey with me. For those of you that are going to stay on the journey with me, I appreciate your support, your attention, your kind words, your questions, and even your challenges more than I will ever be able to put into words. I owe you a debt of gratitude to each and every one of you. But yeah, to YouTube, it has been my distinct honor to serve you all. I pray that you've gotten at least half of the good out of these talks as I've got out of listening to all of you. Like I said, there will be content in the future. I don't know when. I don't know when I'll make my next piece of content for YouTube. Yeah, well, and we got to flesh out. I need to have a meeting with you guys to talk about what the shows should look like, because I've got a couple ideas. But they'll be, like I typically do, more evergreen content, not trying to take advantage of trends or gimmicks or sensationalism just to get people's attention. And maybe what I need to do is go piss a bunch of people off in the real world, and then they'll come find me on social media so they can yell at me. But yeah, so for everybody that's on YouTube, should you desire to continue the journey, the best ways to do it are to definitely listen to my podcast. I think Stephen posted a link to that somewhere. No, I got it. I'll take care of it. it's impossible to, like, if you don't know exactly how to do it, it's a pain. Because even if you know what you're looking for, it's going to take you to the old podcast, and it's going to be ridiculous. Oh, nope. See, even that search doesn't work. Like, you have to know the exact search phrase, and then know that the first Google result is wrong, and then it's a pain in the butt. Anyway, here we go. So, anyway, and if you're not on Apple devices, we're on Google Play, and we're on Alexa. According to my other team member, he went on Spotify today. And it's the old podcast. It's not updated. I don't know why. Spotify said it could take up to a week or whatever, but that was 2 weeks ago. So, iTunes, Google Play, and Alexa. Like, you can, if you have an Alexa device like I do, you can just say, "Hey Alexa, play Bryant Chambers Movement podcast," and it'll find it. And so I use a service called Buzzsprout, and they take care of it. Yeah, Buzzsprout. Yeah. Yep. They show me how many people are listening, where they're listening, what devices they're on. If they're on. I have heard of Podbean. I've never used it, so I'm not exactly sure. I think the price was $16 a month, and I paid for a year or something like that. It's not crazy. There is limited time though, so like I have to pay. I am in the bonus where I have to pay an additional $2 for every hour that I upload because I've uploaded so much. But that's just reality. I don't mind paying it if it means I get to give people dope content every day, which does not require me to have to be on camera and try to look a certain way and try to maintain people's attention with my face. It's much easier to just talk. That's the other reason why I started to focus on the podcast. Um, yeah. And and when we start filming the podcasts, those will go up on YouTube eventually as well. But yeah, I've got to figure out if I want to just upload them like in order on my podcast or create a separate. I'm thinking about creating a separate podcast for them so that people don't have to, like, I may upload them as separate topics on my podcast when, if I feel like one is a good thing I want to say. But in terms of it being the 69 pillars of success, I think I'm just going to upload it as a separate thing. I'm going to create a second podcast. Mm. Well, he gave me a call. Was it late last week or early this week? He was like, "Can I just get a couple minutes?" Actually, it was Monday. Was it Monday? No, no, no. It was Sunday because my business partner came to hang out with me, and I was still on the phone with Tony when he got here. And my business partner's name's Tony too, so that's confusing. But he was talking about, I'm trying to figure out how do I, and I basically what I told him is when I gave you guys your June assignment for the coaching program, the June assignment is going to help you with that. Because I said you need to get really specific about what you want. And so he started saying things. He's like, "Well, I'd like to meet a girl." I'm like, "Okay, how tall is she? What color are her eyes? What does she sound like? What's her ethnicity? What are her values?" Like, I was like, be very effing specific with what you want. Otherwise, you're just going to get arbitrary results. Like when I quoted you guys, in order to build out the training facility and everything I want on my farm, the business is going to have to make about $17,104,237 to build everything out the way I want it. So now I have a goal, like I have a specific number that we have to hit if I want to build all these things that are eventually going to fly people out to my property to train them in way more than just self-awareness, like train these people to be freaking business assassins. Um, and the biggest part of the cost is hilarious. Is not just the land; it's the weapons range, because we're gonna train people in firearms, right? Not because I think firearms are awesome, because I know from experience that when you take someone that's never fired, well, that's not true for me, but you take someone that's never fired a weapon before and may even be scared of guns, and then you teach them how to use them properly to the point where by the end of the training session of the day, they can hit a target. That's a hell of an accomplishment, and it helps you get over. And I can rent the land out to law enforcement, right? Like law enforcement may need range spots. They can use my range and just rent it out, but I can rent it to them at cost, because I know police, like, it's a way that I can give back to my community, because now law enforcement can come and use my range and not have to spend tons and tons of money, because I can subsidize the cost for them, because I know that their money comes from tax money, and they don't always get a lot of money to train and stuff like that, right? So I make a little bit of money, but they save a lot of money, right? So there's a lot of different things that we want to do. I have homeless outreach that I want to do, like helping homeless not just find homes, but get the mental and emotional rehabilitation that they need so they can actually hold jobs, because that's the biggest problem with homeless, is the mental health issue. It's not that they are lazy, which is the most retarded thing I've ever heard from ridiculous rich people that I've worked around in my lifetime. Like, they're just lazy and hang around my business. Like, no, dude, it's bigger than that. You're just an asshole. Let's see. And I'm not criticizing rich people. I know that's what it sounded like. Having money does not automatically make you an asshole. I should know. I've handled some money in my day myself, so I can tell you it did not make me an asshole. Let's see. Laura says, "Thanks so much. I'm a sheepdog since a baby. I thought the sheep around me were just cowards. Thank you for this." Yeah, they're definitely not cowards. I see the dragon for sure. We really need to fight these wolves and level up in mass. Yes, we do. Thea says, "Made a Twitch account but can't find your channel. Any suggestions?" Thanks. Yeah, so I just posted the link there, Thea. The link that Double Post just posted is the link to the Twitter account. Natalie says, so Spotify in the future. Hopefully. I mean, I uploaded it to Spotify. I don't know what's taking so long. Maybe I need to go back into the back area of my podcast and figure out why it hasn't done what it's supposed to do. Christy says, "Wow, if you can help rehabilitate disenfranchised homeless people who don't have another support system, that would be amazing." Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's when, because I'm going to do it. I used to work very heavily with the homeless back in a former career, where maintaining the safety of hundreds of thousands of people every day was my responsibility. And there's a great number of homeless folks that were informants of mine. So I owed them a great debt of gratitude, because they could get into places that my security staff could not. And they could listen. Right? So, and my heart goes out, because I met a lot of these folks and I became friends with a number. In fact, we helped one guy actually get a job. The guy, one of our main dudes that was helping us, we helped him get a job in the building and try to find him a place to, live. But what the world doesn't want to face is a lot of these homeless folks are not just lazy people that don't want to work. They have violent mental health issues that in some cases, if you watch the right documentaries, read the right books, you'll find that there's a number of them. Even if I gave one of them a job, their minds are so troubled that some of them wouldn't even remember, because they've been abused in the streets in some cases, and they have brain damage to where if I hired him today, he wouldn't remember that he has the job tomorrow. It's kind of like that movie 50 First Dates, where she forgets everything every day. Yeah. It is, and it is a thing. I think the movie may have invented some disorder that's not real, but it's based on something real, that's for sure. Heather says, "You're a good person. I've watched many of your videos. I just don't usually comment or chat a lot." That's fine. I'm just glad you're here. you give good advice, and your intentions are pure. I hope so. I'm at very least working on becoming good. At the very least, I'm working on it. You guys can take it to the bank. I may not be good yet, but I'm working on it. Every day trying to get a little bit better. All right, what are y'all's questions? Everyone has these wonderful things to say. I appreciate that. Mhm. Yes, 100%. So Stephen just asked the question for those of you on YouTube: Are there some people in the world that you just can't help? And the answer is absolutely yes, because some people won't accept it. Like if you get two people on the radical ends of a political debate and try to get them to compromise. Like you don't really get to the radical side of your tribe or your clique without a whole heaping host of confirmation bias, of commitment consistency bias, all cognitive, all brain issues that we have, certainty bias. There's a lot of things you kind of got to run past. I mean, like to the point where I'm having a discussion with someone and they're arguing with me about, yeah, that's science, but when has that ever done us any good? Like, well, if we if we can't even like if my answer rooted in scientific study for 300 years is not enough to convince, like then I don't know what to tell you. Like I like to take Neil deGrasse Tyson's approach. He's like, if an argument ever goes past 5 minutes, both people are wrong. Which is why, like, I don't argue or debate with people. Like, I'll get people that come on these talks and want to, like, especially like people want to argue with me about Myers-Briggs stuff. Simple fact of the matter is, neither of us really know. So what's the point? What's the point of me debating you about what? Here's what I think, based on what I've read, based on what I know about Carl Jung, which is the theories that this stuff's based on. Like, that's all I know. Like, maybe you are right, but there's no sense in us debating it because you have a position and I have a position. If you want to share your position with me and have a discourse, I'm all ears. You want to explain to me your rationale for why you came up with what you came up with? I'm going to listen to that because you may teach me something I don't know. But if you're just going to yell at somebody about everything they're saying is wrong because the blog you read you think is smarter than the book that this other person read, it's like, yeah, some people just, like, no matter how much I talk on YouTube, right? Some people are just not going to watch it. You know how many people leave me comments, or used to, back when YouTube had the private comments? Dude, I can't watch a 2-hour stream. Like, can you do me a favor and turn this into a shorter video? No. Like, just don't watch a 2-hour stream. Like, literally, if literally getting information that could and would, if you applied it, change your life, and you wouldn't trade 2 hours of your life for that. It's like when, inevitably when you sell products, you'll find people that say, I never like when people say I can't afford it, because it's not the truth. It's not the truth. It's absolutely not the effing truth. I'd rather you tell me the truth when you tell me that you can't afford one of my products. And now, in reality, I don't expect people to do this because it would be awkward. It'd be an awkward conversation that most people are too scared to have. I wouldn't want to have it with somebody, right? When someone tells you that they can't afford your product, what they're really, really saying to you, and it's okay that they're saying this, which is why they don't tell the truth. They tell you they can't afford it. It's, I don't trust you to get the right results. And so let me paint the picture as to why. If what I was selling was a life-saving surgery and you didn't have the money, you wouldn't have a discourse with me about, oh, I can't afford the surgery. You would go beg, borrow, steal, rob a bank. You do whatever you could to stay alive. What you're saying is your product is, to me, in my perception, what I've learned from you, it's not good enough for me to potentially have this financial strain, right? Like, because I'll ask people, well, what's the price of changing your life? Because that's what it's going to do. That's what I'm guaranteeing with a money back guarantee, is that when you go through this, your life is going to fundamentally change. And I'm going to see to that, right? So it very much becomes an exercise, and you want people to be honest with you. But some people you're just not gonna be able to help because they're not gonna be willing to incur the risk. And trust me, I get it. There are people, I've told stories about coaching programs, a $20,000 coaching program I wanted that I quote unquote couldn't afford. But the truth still was, listen, I'm gonna have to incur debt to do this from my business because right now I'm going through, at that point in my life, I was going through a tough time and I didn't want the strain on my family. Now, if I truly believed that I was going to make this $20,000 investment and that after 3 weeks of hanging out with these people, my business was going to, increase by 200%, if I truly, truly, truly believed that that's what they were going to do for me, I would have gone and found the money. The truth was, I'm like, I like what they're saying, but I'm not for real convinced that I'm going to drop 20 G's. And sometimes it's your own insecurities. It's like, I think they're probably good. I don't know if I'm good enough to learn, right? But it's very much some people and that's one example. But then there's some people there are people who refuse to listen. Even if you know an answer to something, they're just so convinced that you're wrong, and maybe you are. I don't know. But there's some people who just, for whatever reason, they're not in a place where they want to. They're not at a place in their life right now where they can receive what you're saying. And so in that moment, you just can't help them. It's not that you can't ever help them, right? My family couldn't help me with some of the darkness and depression I was having until I became willing to say, you know what, I probably should talk to somebody about this. Because now I'm in the hospital. Like I need to get this squared away. And what makes it especially hard for people like me who are like high motivation, high ambition, and we're actually really good at what we do, we take self-assessment all the time. So it's harder for us to see flaws because it's like, well, damn, I'm so good at everything I'm doing here. Like, why would I admit that there's something wrong with me? Let's see. Let's see. Christy Piper says, what's the best way to take, or maybe I should do you have the questions pulled up, Stephen? Christy Piper says, what's the best way to take the first step toward, I guess, being an entrepreneur? I know I have a lot to offer, but I'm afraid once it's online, I can't take it back and the trolls will attack. So let me help you, Christy. If your success as an entrepreneur is predicated on trolls not attacking you, don't bother. That's the price you pay of being good. Christy says, I'm also very direct and straight up like you, and afraid if I don't rein my personality some, I will offend and scare away people, especially if I want to be a corporate consultant. Thoughts? Yeah, so yes, you're going to attract trolls. Yes, you're going to piss some people off. That's the game. Like, I mean, if Jesus Christ couldn't get off earth without pissing off a couple thousand people, there's no way you're going to. So I would say that subconsciously or at some conscious level, you have a fear of rejection. I know that fear very well. And that fear is greater than your desire right now to be successful. So you need to switch it. You need to feed your desire to be successful so that it's greater than your fear of being rejected. And just accept that, yes, some people are going to reject you. That's the nature. Some people are just not going to like you. That's the way it is. And I submit to you all that the faster you can get to the people not liking you phase, the faster you're going to be successful. Because it's a prerequisite. Like, I'm not saying intentionally going out and trying to piss people off, but when you realize that what you're saying is starting to piss people off or attract trolls, you're going in the right direction. Because otherwise you're just, like, people are ignoring you. Like, nothing you're saying has enough weight to where they care. Let's see. Galactic Gamer says, I personally find longer streams that hold information intriguing. Well, you and I share that in common. Heather Meyer says, sacrifice. How much are you willing to bet on it, invest in it, or risk? Timing. Yeah. Okay. That was a good question, by the way, Christy. Um, yeah, just do it. Do it, and accept. What's that ancient scripture that says, take the take the prosperity and like the hate that comes with it. Like if they figured that out back during the Bible times, it certainly hasn't changed now. We're not all that different, we humans. Okay, what other questions you guys have for me? Or for Steven. If anybody has questions for Steven too on Twitch. Yeah, so let me jump in 1 second so YouTube can keep up. So Steven's asking me a question about how do you determine in your business whether you should, build your business to the point where you can bring in the capital you need to grow your business, or from the jump, should you borrow money or go out and like seek an investor to invest in your business? The answer is obviously it depends. It depends on the type of person that you are. It depends on the terms of investment too, because there's certainly opportunities where, like government grants, for example, where you're not technically borrowing that money, you're getting money to accomplish a thing, right? You have to know if you're going to go and like get, especially if you're like using a credit card or borrowing from the bank, you better dang well have something proven to yourself that can make money if infusing this cash that you're going to borrow, then you have a well-built machine where this, if I put in this much cash, this much is going to come out on the other end. You better have that pretty well figured out before you go start borrowing money. Because if you're just borrowing money because you think you have a good idea, but you don't have any systems in place, you don't have any proven models that this thing you're trying to build works, then you're basically just going into debt. I mean, you might as well just, use that money and throw a giant party. Um, but you also have to understand your personality too. Like, I would not go to the bank. I don't think there will ever be a point in my business where I will go to a bank and borrow money to build something, even if I had that proven model. I like minimizing risk. And it's not that I'm not a risk taker. I just like to take what I consider to be smart risk. And even though I know I could build a system where you put cash in and it spits cash out, um, I don't like being in debt to anybody. It's just personality wise, it's just something I don't like. Right. So what Steven said for the YouTube folks is he knows people who, for example, have seen the ads for these folks that sell courses on how to sell things on Amazon, right? So they're gonna basically go in debt, get a credit card, or borrow money to take the course, which is probably what, $500 to $1,000 if I had to guess, what courses typically cost. And then you're going to incur that debt. Then you're going to incur the debt of having to buy your inventory that you're going to sell on Amazon. And is it a wise decision? Well, it really depends. Like if they back it up with a money back guarantee that says you will be, we will work with you and you'll be making a profit by the end of, let's say, 90 days, and we'll show you how to repeat that profit, then I'm willing to listen. Right? Because you obviously have a system that you're going to show me, and you probably have a ton of experience doing this where you've made millions of dollars doing it already. And you can show a person if they just follow your formula, like you're basically borrowing money to buy their machine that puts money in and spits money out, right? I'm okay with that. You just better know what you're getting into. Because yeah, I do think there's also some shiesty courses out there that are just derivatives of other people's courses, right? And like you went through my marketing course back in the day, where so many people were telling me, like even the stuff I was giving away for free, they were like, "Yo, I bought so and so's course and it didn't even teach me this." I'm like, well, I have nothing bad to say about so and so, but good luck. You know what I mean? Like you gotta know what you're getting into. So we purposely built our courses to the point where it's like, look, if you can't make this work, and it was funny because when I built that course, a number of people quit YouTube because of the course, and it was, well, at least the YouTube portion of the course, and I was happy about that because if you remember when I first built the course, we had so much focus on the creator before we even started talking about algorithms and titles and thumbnails and all the tactical crap people want to hear about. Like I still get emails, "Hey, I want to upload Return of the Jedi trailers and make money." Like, no, Jesus Christ, go work at McDonald's. That's how much money you're gonna really make if your channel doesn't get deleted. And it's I got into the really deep how, like, we had that one video where we actually gave people a personality test, and it was okay. Now, how do you tie that to the type of content you should be building? And we had like 2 or 3 people email me like, "Yo, I quit." I was like, "What?" Like, basically, I went through your self-awareness course and I realized I need to get off YouTube because my real dream is this, and it has nothing. And I'm like, well, and they were sad. I'm like, no, that's freaking great. I'm glad you learned that at 22 and not 42, right? Like I was happy to see people go through my course, and then their solution was I need to quit YouTube because that was the right thing for them. But if the course isn't that good, then it's a risk no matter what. But one of the things we've always done is back up. We've backed up every course we've ever done with a money back guarantee, because I'm like, if you're the one person who I'm promising you there's going to be it. Now, granted, the promise is predicated on you actually do the work, that you're going to start to see changes in your life, positive changes, and going in the right direction and having more clarity. But if you don't feel that as you get through the course, after 30 days, here's your money back. Right? But we do that money back guarantee. It's a way of communicating with my audience that you can trust me. Like, I have no reason to lie to you because I'm going to give you your money back at the end of this if it doesn't, but it's also like, we'll give you your money back for any reason after 30 days. You just decide, look, dude, I'm out. I just basically wanted to watch your videos for a month for free. Like, okay, that's shitty, but here's your money back. Good luck to you. But we would do that. I'm not going to ask questions about your life or what's going on here. Checks in the mail. It'll be in your bank account in 3 days, right? So it's the good business courses will give you, like, listen, we're going to build this system for you. It's going to take this many days if you follow every step we show you. And if it doesn't work, even some will go as far as to say, we'll give you more. Now, I don't do that. But they'll be like, we'll give you the money back and money for your trouble or whatever. I think those are usually, like, you're going to find most of these people out here selling courses are not, like, lying. I think some of the courses are not as good as others. But in my whole time doing it, I've only heard about one guy that put together a course that people were messaging me like, dude, this dude is a fraud. We just spent I won't even name the amount of money because it's ridiculous. And people may be able to figure out who I'm talking about, but they were like, we just spent this many tens of thousands of dollars for this course, and it was nonsense. It doesn't even teach what you teach just in the SEO portion of your marketing course. I was like, sorry. Because the message started with him, have you ever heard of this guy? I was like, yeah, I've heard of him. I've seen him before. And they were like, yeah, he's out here hustling people, dog. I'm like, ugh, tough break. That's probably not going to work well for him in the end. If it's true, like, I don't know. I don't think one of my customers would have a reason to lie to me about that, but that's rough, man. That's not a situation that I want to be in. Let's see. Christy Piper says, do you think you need to remain professional and formal to attract corporate clients? All right, so it's kind of a general question. All right, so what do you mean? Let me make sure I understand what you mean by corporate clients. Like, what type of service specifically do you want to provide, and what would you consider an example of a corporate client? Just so we're on the same terms. I think I know what you mean, but I want to make sure before I answer. Let's see. There was another question in here that I missed from somebody a minute ago. I want to make sure I answered it. Oh, it was Taj. Taj says, do we create our own wolves? Good evening, by the way, Brian. Yes, to a degree. I don't think you create the wolf, but you definitely feed it. Right? I think the wolf is created based on just your genetics, your makeup as a human being, other people's dissenting negative voices. But what happens is, it's not that you create the wolf, but you feed and nurture it. And so you have to feed the wolf, the good wolf inside of you, to be willing to go out and fight the wolf that's trying to hold you back. Christy Piper says, would you advise starting more than one type of business at once? No. Say getting clients on the corporate side and helping coach individuals. Well, so it depends on what you're doing. Those don't necessarily have to be two separate businesses. They may just be two services you provide in a single business. Right? Because I've done that. Like, I help corporations, but I also coach. I mean, that's a lot of what I've done in the past, right? And even now. But it can just be two things, two products or two services that you provide from a singular business. But I would recommend that whatever you're coaching on should be probably similar to what you're doing for other clients. Like, you should be able to distinguish yourself from competitors. Let's see. Raz says, I'm 100 pages into the Essential Drucker, and it's finally getting good. So Raz continues to beat me up about my book recommendations. She doesn't like the books I recommend. It's hilarious. She's playing into the female stereotype that women are the more dominant readers of fiction in the world. Let's see. And I'm totally joking around, guys. I'm just picking on Raz. Adnan says, Mr. Bryant. Mr. Bryant. That sounds weird. How does a dog become a wolf? Is there a way to reverse that? I don't know what you mean by. I mean, a dog becomes a wolf. That's just how it happens. I don't really understand. I think your metaphor is lost on me, brother. What are you actually trying to say? Can a sheep become a wolf? Because I don't believe that some people are naturally evil. Well, I would tell you that even if we want to say someone's not naturally evil, there are naturally psychopaths in the world, and they are usually the wolves. Could a sheep become a wolf? Absolutely. But some people are born wolves, and it's unfortunate. Raz says, LOL, I liked all of Stephen... What'd you say? Yeah, some are, but like, if you take a person who, if they're born a psychopath without that, built-in moral compass, oftentimes you find that trait with a lot of the evil that happens in the world. Like, look at a lot of what we call terrorist groups and some of the things they do. A rational, properly, mentally well human being would not be able to do that stuff without some really heavy conditioning. Raz says, I liked all of Stephen Pressfield's books. but the essential drucker is a little dry for me. But I can tell. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not Harry Potter. I will give you that. It's not. Well, you know, I've never read Harry Potter, so I can't even really make that distinction. It's not. It's certainly not exciting. I will give you that. Let's see. Christy Piper says, for a corporate client's example, a corporation like Verizon with nationwide offices, would you hire me to improve communication, streamline processes, and cut out toxic behavior? Yeah, so then yeah, if you're going into that type of corporate environment, there's a certain amount of, I guess, should you remain professional? I mean, what would the alternative be to remaining professional? Are you talking about the way you're dressing? Are you talking about the way, like, you basically should communicate in a way that resonates with whatever client you're trying to attract. So I don't, and now that I know what you mean by corporate clients, professional could be a relative term too, but I imagine you're talking about the way you, you know, express yourself, like the way you dress, the way you talk, certainly should be professional if that's who you're going after. Uh-oh. Looks like my computer froze. Did it? Yep, my computer's frozen. Yep. Anytime I'm running OBS, like Twitch, anytime I'm running all this stuff together, this computer loses its mind. So, nope, the stream is still live and kicking. I just can't see anybody's comments. So I'll have to rely on you to be my eyes. I can see YouTube's comments because those are coming on my phone. But anything that's happening on Twitch, oh, that's actually not 100% true. Let me see if I can pull up OBS. Nope, it's straight up frozen. Yes. Oh, never mind. I can see the questions. The questions are coming through. It's just my ability to manipulate the screen is frozen. iFlame says audio is coming through on Twitch, but the screen is definitely frozen. Let's see. Let's see. Christy Piper says, by professional example is talking from the individual side of the frustrations of dealing with certain work environments and saying in a direct, raw, funny, maybe so you just that Christy, that just comes down to you got to be able to read your audience. Like, you want to convey yourself in a way that's going to resonate with whomever you're talking to. Like, if they're a no nonsense, get down to business, it's not time for jokes person, then you don't want to do that. So what you would benefit from is being able to read people, and being able to understand how to communicate in a way that resonates with someone that may communicate in a different way than you. Hippie Mo says, so be. I'm finally working on getting better at animating and making videos. I should go about advertising myself. That depends. What's the outcome you want? And how do you plan to advertise? Oh, he said, how should I go about advertising myself? Well, again, that depends on what's the outcome you want. What do you want to happen after you've advertised yourself? And whom will you be advertising yourself to? Answer those two questions and I can give you a better answer. And I was so looking forward to eating some cashew keto fudge tonight. I'm still going to do it. If I have a dream about Freddy Krueger, I'll just kill him again. Adnan, I can tell you that's not quite how psychopathy works. It's not quite how being a psychopath works, my friend. You might want to do a little more study on that one. All right, so I imagine while Hippie's typing, let me give a last call for questions on YouTube, and just remind you guys that if you would like to stay up on all the greatness that we're doing here, definitely going to want to follow us on Twitch and to subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, definitely do that. Christy Piper says it can be tough to read my audience because the corporate side will understand things differently and use different language than the individual clients. Right. So you need to be bilingual. You need to be able to talk in a way that the client understands, and the corporate side. You need to be able to speak both languages. And yes, you're correct. It's tough. That's what makes it good. Otherwise, everybody could do it, and you wouldn't be able to distinguish yourself. Okay. Hippie Mo must be getting it in with this question he's writing. Christy says, you're right. It's a delicate balance. Thanks. Sweet. You're more than welcome. Hi, Kira. How you doing? Kira, I sent you a question on the community page. I don't know if you saw it, but I know if you did see it, it's not letting you respond to it. So YouTube's weird. What can we say? Okay. So Kira, how would you answer the question that I sent you? I was trying to understand, like, what was your rationale for, because you and one other person answered the question in a way that I was like, that's not what I'm asking, but I'm very curious about what led you to the answer. I'd love to hear it, Kira. Whenever you are ready. Steven, do you see anything from Hippie Mo Jagger in terms of, or is my, okay, nope, there he is. He just popped up. Yeah, Twitch gets funny about that. That is way too high praise, but I thank you for it, man. I'll Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. All right, Hippie Mo says, I think I want to attract people who want to listen to fun stories and people who are looking for a laugh. Okay, that's too general. And I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm pointing at the camera like anybody can see me. He can only hear me. Who want to laugh. I ultimately want to entertain people by visualizing my life experiences. Okay, now let's get a little more specific. The how to advertise, I honestly don't know. So it sounds to me like you're still trying to figure out what you want to create. So if your question is, when you're still in that phase, should you be advertising? No, because you're still trying to figure out, one, what product should you even create? And it sounds like you don't really understand. Your audience is way too broad. You said you told your friends and family and was planning on asking them to share what I've been working on. So I think it's fine to have like social media and to document the process, not from an advertising perspective, but just to bring people in on what you're working on. But you said you want to attract people who want to listen to stories. Oh, I think my computer's back online. Yep. Awesome. I want to attract people who want to listen to fun stories and people who are looking for a laugh. Okay, so that's Earth. That's about 8 billion people, right? That's way too broad. There's no way you are going to, well, maybe you are. Maybe you are the next Jesus Christ. But just in case you aren't, you need to be way more like, who are you trying to make laugh specifically? Right? Everybody wants to hear stories and laugh. That's every human soul. And you're not going to sell anything. You cannot make something good enough and generic enough to attract 8 billion people. It's just not going to happen. So you need to get very specific about who you want to create content for. And if you want some clues about where you should start with you. What types of things do you like? What makes you laugh? Right? Because that's what you're, number one, going to be really good at creating, is stuff that you like. Right? And you can imagine that there's probably not 8 billion people in the world like you. There's probably at least 1 million who'd pay attention to you. Right? So you need to get really specific about what it is you're wanting to create and for whom. And in fact, I'd reverse those two. Start with who you want to create for and then what you want to create. And if it's people like you, awesome. Then write out everything you know about yourself, right? Your demographics, like how old are you? Where are you from? Are you white? Are you rich? Like all those things. Then write out what are my values, right? Do you believe in sacrificing for the greater good? Do you believe in, putting other people first? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Do you like making fun of Democrats and Republicans? I don't know. Figure out all those things, and then you can start to shape your animations around that. Because it sounds to me like, if I had to guess what you're talking about doing, you're doing something along the lines of like Odd Ones Out on YouTube, I would imagine is what you have in mind. And that's cool. He tells stories for young kids because he tells stories from his younger life. And so his focus is young kids, probably elementary school to high school age, and telling stories about what it means to grow up as this kind of awkward but really intelligent kid that's trying to find his way in the world. Now, a lot of people can relate to that, but he's clearly not making that content for me. I hear it because my son watches it. It's interesting, but I don't then, let me go see what the Odd Ones Out's doing. I don't care what he's doing. Like, if I have to listen to it in the car with my son, because that's what he wants to listen to, it's one of the few shows that my kids watch where I can actually listen to it and not want to drive the car into a river. Right, so that's where I'd start in your case.
Why do you think that it is easier to figure out why you're making the content versus who you're making the content for? Because that's always part that always stuck me was who am I making this content for? Because it's easy to go, oh, I'm making it people like me, but you don't really, you're your own person and looking at everyone else, it's kind of like not everyone's going to share that same kind of like mindset as you.
Right, and you just answered your own question. You literally just said the reason why people don't do it is because you're like, well, I'm making it for me and there's no one else like me,
Right.
which is false. Right? And the fear is if I don't make this as broad as possible, no one's going to watch it. And you got to remember, starting a business or a freelance career or becoming an entertainer, it's the most counterintuitive thing you can do with your life. Because all the things that you've been taught that work in school work against you here. It's not intuitive to start a business. The things you have to know, you didn't learn in algebra class, right? So it's people think if I don't make something broad enough, I won't get an audience. When the exact opposite is the truth. If you do not make something specific, no one's going to pay attention to you because it's too generic and not interesting enough. And nobody can identify with it and say, this is for me, right? When I hear Jordan, like literally, I was telling my wife on our podcast today, I've been listening to a lot more of what Jordan Peterson talks. Now, let me give some context. I learned about Jordan Peterson by creating YouTube content. I had never heard of the man until people came on my YouTube channel like, yo, dude, you and this cat named JP say a lot of the same stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. Let me check this dude out. And then people were comparing me to him. I'm like, this dude is on some genius level. I'm not, like, are you kidding me? But what I started to learn was as I watched him more and more, I was like, these people are right. Like, he said something the other night on a Joe Rogan podcast that was almost verbatim something I say all the time. And I didn't get it from him. I got it from, we're probably reading the same books, right? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I literally just said that exact same thing to one of my neighbors who's always bitching about politics, right? All the time. It's like, dude, get some self-awareness. You'll be less judgmental. Then I turn on Jordan Peterson. He's like, well, the way to be less judgmental is to be more self-aware. I'm like, wow, right? And so when you look at stuff like that, it comes down to he creates content for me. That intellectual, like I consider myself a modern day philosopher, right? And Stephen Hawking, just like Friedrich Nietzsche before him, said that philosophy is dead. That breaks my heart, and he's right. And I don't think, just like Nietzsche, when Nietzsche said God is dead, and Jordan Peterson says he didn't say that triumphantly, I believe Stephen Hawking said philosophy is dead, not triumphantly, because he knew if we lose, just like Jordan Peterson says, um, if we lose God, then we lose the essence of what we are as man, right? Just like with philosophy, if we lose that, then we lose what's led us to what we now call science and wisdom and all these things, right? We lose that base of what makes us curious. And so it kills me because that's what I'm very interested in, is an interrogation of the truth. That's everything I'm doing is predicated on getting people to the truth so they can live out the purpose that they were put on this earth to do. And that you don't get to live out your purpose without going on that journey that Stephen Pressfield talked about. He said it. He says, at great cost, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, you're going to go through these trials, right? That is the interrogation of truth that Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and Francis Bacon, all these people were on that journey. And I feel like I'm on that journey. So when I see another man on YouTube who's doing that, I'm like, I'm going to listen to everything this dude says.
So it's really like comes down to it though. It comes down to finding those like-minded people. So like if you're watching a content creator that you admire and you're like, oh, this is amazing. You know, I want to make content either like that person or just really try to help them get involved in that community to understand what those people like.
Well, but like that's why I said start with yourself, because the common myth and misconception and flat out lie is that we think we're so unique. We're not. Every one of us has the same 6 basic human needs. We perceive them differently, right? We're not all that different from each other. Now our tastes can be very different, but for me to literally believe there's no one else on earth who's just like me, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. I hear so many people who aren't exactly like me, but they have enough of me in their speech and in their creation that it makes me want to be around Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and Louis C.K. It makes me want to spend time with these people because I learn from them or I laugh with them, right? Or I get stronger. Hanging out with Joel Salatin. Jesus Christ, I would hang out with that guy every day. I thought about going to work on his farm for free just so I could just listen to him talk. Like, yeah, Joel, that's right. Hey, like, hey, do you work here? I'm just a volunteer. I don't actually. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people on Earth who are like you, right? It would be insane to think, oh, I'm so unique that no one will be into what I'm into. Nonsense. You know, they may not be into everything you're into, but and so what we run into is we don't understand that the best way to get a big audience is to get a small audience first, because and this is a business concept that's very counterintuitive. I would rather a business, an entertainer, whatever you are, get 100 people that love what you do versus 1,000,000 people who are like, yeah, he's okay, right? Because I can take 100 people who love what I do, and if each one of them tells one other person, that's 200. If each one of them tells one person, it's 400. If each one of them tells, you see where that goes? 800, 1,600, 3,200, and actually it grows exponentially. It grows more than that, right? So then it becomes 200, and then each of them tell one. Well, it's why you're friends. It's why you're friends, because it's very tribal, and so that 200 people can very quickly become millions. Versus if you just, especially if you're selling a product, if you have 1,000,000 people who are all saying, yeah, it was okay, nobody's buying your product, because it's very easy to go from 100 people who love you to 1,000,000 people who love you, and it's almost impossible to get 1,000,000 people who think you're just okay to think you're awesome. Because once you become awesome, you're immediately going to alienate at least 500,000 of them. Because the reason why they think you're meh is because you don't really polarize anybody. You feel me? So that's the counterintuitive part about starting a YouTube channel, starting a business, is people think, oh, I got to create this content that's for everybody. No, dude, I made obscure, like when I started on YouTube, I made obscure reviews for video games that I loved that everybody else hated. Or I hated on games that people loved and got called names like Negro, cunt, bitch. That's still my favorite insult ever. When a guy called me all those names in one sentence. Like, wherever that guy is, I pray that he's blessed, because he brought so much enjoyment to my life. He's like the dude, and you guys will forgive my French. I have friends that still tease me about this YouTube content. At my old house, I used to film outside next to this giant tree, and I used to wear my Washington Nationals hat. Well, this person apparently didn't know anything about baseball, because I don't think he was joking, because the comment was way too abrasive. He's like, hey man, quick question for you. He's like, I appreciate everything you're teaching us here, but why in the, he says literally, why in the fuck do you have on a Walgreens hat? He's like, are you like the son of the guy that owns Walgreens? And I'm like, what? So I saved that as an image that I put on Facebook years ago. It's my favorite thing. But it's when you make content that's polarizing, yes, you're gonna. It's going back to what Christy's question was. Yeah, you're gonna piss some people off. Good. That means you're making something good. Because if nobody ever gets angry about what you do, it means you're not really having an effect, right? If no one's arguing with you, it means that you're too vanilla. And so, yeah, the counterintuitive part is everyone wants to get they want to go straight from zero to PewDiePie. But PewDiePie is an example of where he started with people that loved him, but then over time that love didn't pan out. Like, he's got millions of people that are like, because you look at how many people subscribe to him, but how many people actually watch him. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still in the millions. He's still doing great. But it's like you also have people like Angry Joe, who only has 3 million people following him, but every one of those bastards watches his show when he puts it out, right? Even if it's when they're angry about something he said or did. So yeah, Hippie Mo says, I'll start working on narrowing down my audience. So we've got some exercises for you, Hip, in the bonus content, because I know you're in the coaching program. The bonus content in the Social Media Master University will show you. I have videos that show you specifically how to niche down like that. It'll help you out, so you don't have to try to do it on your own. Let's see. Let's go back to YouTube for some questions here. Kira says, hi, Brian, everyone. Yes, I got it. She says, I have an answer. Anne Rochelle says, have you heard of Tracy Timberlake? I don't think so. Kira says, typing. Anish says, hey, Brian, couldn't catch your last few live streams as my 4th semester finals were finishing up. Totally understand. Is this one about content creation? No. No, I can't even explain what this one's about. You just got to go back and watch it. We landed on content creation because we're in the Q&A. And as is typical with my shows, I don't limit what people can ask me about. Kira says, so take a general poll to see how many people are interested in purchasing the course initially. Divide that into the cost of making it plus. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So I don't really do, I do cost based on value. When I price things, I don't base it on how many people are going to buy it or how much like it costs me to make it. That's not important to me. My goal is I'm going to, because I think people misunderstood the question, and I'll explain it to you. I'm going to price it based on how valuable I think it is, divided by 10, right? Like if I think something is worth $6,000, I'll charge $600 for it. What I was asking the audience was, to you, it's not about me and what I'm going to do. It's because if you notice the wording I used it wasn't how much do you think it should cost. It's how much do you think it's worth, right? And I gave 3 options. Anybody that said 20 automatically identified. Anybody that said $20 based on what I was offering, let me know that they were in the ridiculous column. It's like I was segmenting my audience. Like if you just want to understand kind of the motivation behind it, was anybody that clicked on $20, that's ridiculous. Like, yep. Then basically that let me know 46% of my audience ain't buying this thing, which is fine. That's cool. That 46%, we just put them over here. The middle of the road and the 100 was to show me, okay, that's where it's going to be people who are potentially would spend 100. But the question was very specifically, what do you think it's worth? Not how much you think it should cost. What do you think it's actually worth? Now, in my estimation, because I'm talking to people that don't see the world like I do, if I was writing that question to me, it would have said $200, $500, or $1,000, right? Or maybe even more. But I know if I wrote that, a good portion of my audience on YouTube are not necessarily sitting around with $1,000 just to throw at the window, right? But yeah, it was very much, what do you think it's worth? Because that tells me about how you value things, and then it lets me know, do I even have a market for creating something like this? And the answer was pretty much based on how many people voted. Maybe there is a market on YouTube of people who could benefit from this, right? But chances are, because a very large percentage of the people put $20, as if I make a course that's that helpful for only $20. Like, I guess if I made it like a sheet that you had to fill out, I'd charge $15 for that or something. But I'm not worried about how much it costs me to make it, because I'll make that money back. That's not an issue. It's, I want to know what my audience thinks it's worth, because that tells me a lot about their character. Like, if people literally believe, hey, I'm going to show you the success formula I've used to win over and over and over again in my life. What's that worth to you? Oh, $20. What that tells me immediately is this person is very cheap. Like, they're not thinking value, they're thinking cost, which is someone I never want to sell to, ever. And the numbers are arbitrary. I could have made it $2 million. It doesn't matter. It's the person that said $20 is telling me you don't value things very well at all.
Is that one of the questions you usually ask? Because one of my friends told me, like, when it comes to freelancing and it comes to like figuring out like how much to charge for services, one of the first questions that generally we ask is, what's your budget? And what that does is it signifies, one, it's not going to be free, but two, it also kind of signifies that like how much are they willing to pay and all that.
Well, so I have a problem with a client that leads with how much is this going to cost me?
Right.
Because you're not thinking like you're immediately, if I get a client that leads with how much is it going to cost me, let's say how much is it going to cost me to get you to run on my social media, and let's assume the meeting just started and I don't know jack about your business other than what I can read on a website, right? Like, we're both business owners in a negotiation who are trying, I hope, to help each other,
Yeah.
right? And as you lead with how much is it going to cost me, you've automatically, you haven't completely disqualified yourself in my mind, but you're starting to slide down on the scale to a client I don't want to work with, because you're going to be the type of client that's so miserly with it that you don't understand value versus cost, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Secondly, for you to have the audacity to believe that I could just, and it's not all the client's fault. In fact, it's more the system's fault, and it's just the client reacting properly. Clients are used to dealing with people who charge by the hour. I don't believe in that. I think charging by the hour worked if you work in a factory where you can build X amount of widgets over time, then I can break down each widget is costing me X. Like, if I'm going to make $100 on each widget and you can make 100 of them in a day, well, you just made me $10,000. I'm willing to pay you each day whatever I'm willing to pay you, minus the cost of the materials and the cost to have the building, minus the cost of running air conditioning if I don't want to run a slave shop, sweatshop. I'm willing to pay you X amount of dollars to work for X amount of hours to put out 100 widgets, right? So in the industrial revolution, yeah, working by the hour kind of made sense because it made it really easy for your bookkeepers to predict output. But when you live in a knowledge society where most of the skills we are giving people is knowledge skills that can turn into money, but you can't tie exactly. And there's people who argue this. They argue, well, it's just easier to budget out. You're right. It is easier, but it means both of you are taking an L. Because, and you see this a lot in the government where a contracting agency will say, we'll sell you these 5 people will come and work on this project for, and we're going to charge you, let's say, $200,000 for each one of them, right? So it's $1 million for these 5 people to come here and fix whatever's wrong with your organization and the government, right? Well, now they only pay those people like a quarter of that, maybe, and the company, and then everything those contractors are doing is based on the amount of time they spend serving the government, which is absolutely ridiculous. Because it's, well, if the taxpayer is paying for that, what was the output? Oh, they wrote a couple of reports that the senior executives never listened to. That's what that's what the taxpayer, like, it's a completely inefficient way to run your business, right? Unless you can tie it to, and you sell yourself short. Because if I'm going to help you make $1 million, I'm charging you $600,000 an hour. Like, it's like, because you shouldn't have to pay me for how fast or slow I am. What if it only takes me an hour, but it makes you, let's say I'm helping a real estate agent, right? And I help them sell. Let's say I'm helping the broker and not the agent. And I know I'm getting technical for you guys here that don't know real estate, but just hang with me. I'm helping the broker, not the agent, meaning the people doing the deal, right? So they sell the house for $1 million, right? That means the broker just made $300,000, right? Now the broker has to pay a percentage of that to the agent, which is probably going to be about 150. I believe that's how that works out, right? So if I just made your business after your expenses $150,000 in your coffers, I want at least, let's say, um, let me find my. Let's say I want at least. Let's say I want 1%. I want 10% of that. I want $15,000. Now, if I was charging you by the hour, and I just made you $150,000. Let's say it only took me an hour, because I've done that. Like I ran an ad for a real estate agent that was trying to rent out a hard property. Um, it took me 8 minutes to set up the ad. It took me another 4 minutes to change the ad when they asked for a copy change. They wanted to change the price. By the time we ran the ad and the changes, so it took me 12 minutes to do the ad, and it cost me $20 to run it. Like if I had been working by the hour, I would have made what? Let's say I charge $100 an hour, right? Well, I only worked 12 minutes, and let's say I could, I round up to the nearest hour, right? So I just made $100 to make you $2,000 every single month. How's that fair? The answer is it's not. So if I'm starting with a client that's like, yo, how much do you charge? Well, my answer is, well, because I don't know anything about your business, I charge anywhere from $2,000 to $1 million a month. And usually if you say that to a client, they look at you crazy, like, well, okay, where do I fall? I'm so glad you asked that. Tell me about your business and what you're actually trying to accomplish so that I can then assess a value based upon what I'm doing for you, right? So that's when we start getting into how much should you charge. Don't start with how much. Like, I don't have set rates. I don't. Like there's deals I would take today that, like that real estate deal, I would totally not charge a retainer. And for that much money, I'd just work on 100% commission. Especially if they were a good broker and they just needed someone to help them get the churn out, and I'm running their ads or whatever it is I'm doing. I'll take $15,000 every time we sell one of your $1 million houses. I don't need a retainer. I don't need, how much do I charge? How many houses do you sell? Great, I charge 10% up to $1 million. Anything over $1 million, I charge 15% plus, blah, blah, blah. Right, so that's right. So like when I ask a question to my audience, how much, I'm going to build a course that's going to show you how I get repeatable success. Like, by the way, it's the same system I use to get married. I've been happily married for almost 17 years. Same system I used to be a good soldier, or you could say a C+ soldier, but still not failing. I'm still alive. Same system I used to, be decent in the Fortune 500 world. Could have been better, but I was young and immature, but they believed in me. Same system I used to make an extra $20,000 or whatever. Also paid for kids' preschools and all that stuff, right? So I'm going to show you how I'm literally a system that if you implemented it like I did, you'd get similar results, right? So it's like, if he's made, let's say $1 million, then I can assume I can at least make 10% of that. I could probably make 100,000 at least if I don't have his experience, but I have his knowledge. I could probably make 10% of that, right? So you're gonna tell me that's worth $20 to you. It's like I'm asking. It's not quite a trick question because I'm not trying to be manipulative. It's I want to see where the heads of my people are, and if the people that are following me say this is worth $20, you immediately told me you are not the type of person that I'm trying to coach. And it helps me segment, and I don't know who the person who voted is, so it's not like it's not like I'm trying to single people out. As I'm trying to get a feel for about 46% of my audience are people I should never sell anything to. It's a good number. Like if I aggregate it out across the whole of the people that follow me, but everybody in that $20 column is like, yep, about 46% of you are never going to buy anything from me because it's never going to be cheap enough. You're always going to be looking at the cost versus the value. And I don't ever want to work with people like that. Not that I don't want to help people like that. That's why I do hundreds of hours of free content. You'd be better just watch the free stuff. You don't, because you're never, that person's not actually going to watch and apply the principles anyway. And then they're just going to be mad that they spent $20 and didn't get results. Like there's a lot of psychological inferences I can make based upon the way you answer questions. Let's see. Sister Hipster says the SJWs need that simple statement. I'm not sure which statement I said that. Are you talking about the 100 people that love you versus million that think you're okay? I'm not sure what I said. Imani Watkins says, not too long ago, joined, so I am a little behind. Can you explain the inspiration for the title? I cannot. Not succinctly. All I can say is this will be uploaded a couple minutes after I shut up. And I recommend you going back and watching it. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. Like, it's very hard to explain the concept for tonight's talk. In short, it's, I can summarize it. It's, in your life, you have two options. You can either choose to live out the purpose, your God-given purpose here on earth, or you can choose to live out a life of regret and pain and trying to distract yourself from that pain of not pursuing your purpose. That's what tonight's talk was about. And I was kind of drawing a line in the sand and saying, choose which one of those people you are. And if you're in the first category, the people that have decided to live out your purpose, even though you know it's going to hurt, there's going to be some pain that comes with that, cool. You should probably keep following me on social media. If you're number two, you'd rather just watch Game of Thrones and eat cookies and, not really try because you're afraid to fail, or then, I wouldn't say stop watching. I'd say hopefully keep watching and you get the inspiration to become number one. Or my fear would be that eventually you just get bitter and don't want to deal with me. But that was kind of the gist of what we talked about tonight. Let's see. Cure H says, "Oh, well, then definitely $100 at least if you're purely talking value, 100%." Diana M says, "What top 3 books do you recommend?" Well, that depends on what you're trying to do. I don't necessarily have a top 3 books just for life in general. I mean, I'd start with the Bible. There's a lot of really good wisdom in there, even if you don't believe in God or the Christian version of God. I talk about a ton of stuff I talk about comes out of the Bible. And a lot of people don't know that I'm quoting the Bible. They just think, oh, that's really interesting what he just said. Like, I didn't make that up. Zechariah or somebody wrote that back a long time ago. But yeah, tell me what you're trying to do. I'll tell you what books to read. Yeah, tell her she can join. Let's see, Porter Reed says, what can a sheepdog do to help the wolf coexist with the sheep? That is an interesting question. Nothing. The wolf must be destroyed. Figuratively speaking. Actually, sometimes literally. There is no coexisting. Wolves eat sheep. There's no, that's not happening. The wolf is not going to be like, you know what, I've been eating all these sheep all these years. I think I'm going to go vegan. It's not going to happen. The wolf's always going to eat sheep. The wolf has to be put down. Let's see. Anish says, Brian, is there any way Chrome can... Oh. Well, so here's the flip side of it, though. Because now we're talking figurative. The wolf can be helped if he decides to not be a wolf. But as long as he or she chooses to be a wolf, it's ass whooping time for the sheepdog. Like, I'm sorry. There will be no coexistence between sheep and wolves. Now, if the wolf decides to take his fangs out and say, you know what, I'm going to become a sheepdog or a sheep, then we'll listen to you. But we're still going to keep an eye on you, too. You know what I mean? But while you're still a wolf, there's not going to be any coexistence. Let's see. Anish says, Brian, is there any way Chrome can notify me when you're live on Twitch? So you should get an email when I go live on Twitch. So I don't know that Chrome can do it. Maybe Steven can speak to that. But I do believe you should be getting emails from me. Now, I realize some of the younger crowd, email's not your jam. I've learned that very heavily over the last couple of years selling things online. That email is not necessarily people's preferred method of communication.
Yeah, I'm sure I think you have to set that as notifications on the actual. Geez, I don't know.
Yeah, if it, I would just Google it. I have no idea. None. Imani Watkins says, "What advice do you have for when you lost your sense of true purpose?" Uh,
Hey, Anna.
what?
Hey
Anna's,
guys,
what up, G?
I am here. Not much, but you guys got some weird audio, or not an echo, a delay. Like, double pulse will say something, and then B will reply, but the audience isn't hearing double pulse until like 30 seconds later, and then it's going over top of B talking about whatever else is going on around them.
That's so weird. What the heck?
It is. It's really strange.
Well, I don't know. Well, thanks for
Yeah,
bringing it to our attention.
Oh,
no problem.
I think I know why that's happening.
I don't know either. I have not seen Zoom do that before.
That is very weird.
So now you guys, I'm too self conscious to talk now. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do to solve that.
Independently on the screen.
So I'm gonna mute you guys so that I can just hear you, and then I can just repeat your comments to the audience because that's gotta suck if that's what people are hearing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's a nightmare.
That's totally fine. I was sitting here listening to it, and I'm like, how the heck is that even happening?
Well, I thought maybe I had my sync stuff off, but that's
Oh, yeah.
so well. It's running through OBS,
Yeah, if you're
right?
feeding, okay, so if you're feeding the stream your mic audio, and then Zoom, OBS might be receiving Zoom on a delay.
Which is weird. And I checked the settings to make sure I wasn't doing that. So it must be some default not. The bottom line is I'm gonna pay. I think I'm gonna start a company to make a streaming software. It's gonna be like after I build my gaming company, Succinct Games. And I don't think Anna's been here for any of those talks. Those were hilarious. Like
I have not.
during my.
I have not. I've been away.
So one of the things I'm going to do as our business grows, when we start to look at investing at other businesses, is either buying or creating a video game publisher. And the publisher's name is going to be Succinct Games, where
Okay.
there will be no side quests in our games or you're fired. Um, like the games will only be as long as they are fun. So The Witcher 3 will be 13 hours instead of 70. Like it just games are too effing long. They talk too much, and I can't do it anymore. Um, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Damn it, I don't have time to listen to Hideo Kojima try to rewrite Apocalypse Now into a video game. It's just, and I love Hideo Kojima. He made my second favorite video game of all time, and then he also is the reason why I think video games suck now. It's like,
That is such an unfortunate thing to
it
say.
is, man. Like, how do you make my favorite game ever and then you ruin video games forever? And I mean, for me, like, he made video games amazing for all you young bucks. But for guys like me that just want to get in the spaceship and blow everything up, I don't. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna have a game company called Succinct Games. Then I think I'm gonna make a streaming software company. It's gonna be called Your Stream Will Not Suck Streaming Company. Like, like,
Yeah,
and
the
I
marketing just sorts stuff from there.
Yeah, the marketing is just going to be this video. Like, you want your stream to sound like this? Keep using OBS and all this over the counter nonsense. Or you could just buy ours, which never, it's ridiculous.
That's weird. I just watched your because I still have I don't know if it's a lag thing on my end, but like I just watched you jump cut.
It might
Like,
be. Stephen, when you were listening, was what Anna was talking about happening? When you were listening?
What was going on? I'm sorry.
I said, Anna's comment about the delay between our talking, was that happening when you were listening to the stream too?
I don't know. I didn't think it was.
All right.
I must have been working second, and it seemed fine. So it might
So let's take it to the audience. Audience, you just heard Steven talk, and now I'm talking. In what you're hearing, are we talking over each other, or are we talking the way we're actually talking? YouTube, you have no idea what's going on because none of this is happening on YouTube. You guys are just looking at me on my.
That they heard me on YouTube,
Well, that person was on both streams.
okay.
Yeah, there's no way YouTube's hearing you unless they're magic.
Yeah, I'm still hearing it on my end. I did refresh, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'll wait for the rest of the audience too. If it is, then I'll mute you guys again. Okay. iFlame says yeah, it's still doing it. Yeah, no, you're not alone. So I'll mute you guys again. I mean, we're at the end of the talk.
Each other all night.
How could have said something earlier?
It's fine. Apparently, nobody was upset about it.
I've noticed kind of silent and then I talk occasionally, so that's probably why nobody really noticed it too much until I started talking.
Yeah. Oh well. Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. Well, I will. Like, I've literally been on the internet and Twitter. Like, I will pay a company hundreds of dollars. Just give me a software that doesn't require me to have a PhD in electrical engineering and computer. Well, I already have a computer science degree. Like, I'd like to not have to use my computer science degree to make software work, guys. Like, I'm just happy my computer hasn't crashed this far into the stream. Usually by now we've had to restart once or twice. All right, let's see. Imani asks, what advice do you have for someone who's lost their sense of purpose? I would tell you that you probably not lost your sense of purpose. You just probably got down the road and it got tough and you started to question whether or not it was your purpose. Somewhere deep down in the depths of your soul, you have an inkling, if not a perfect picture, because I don't think it's ever a perfect picture. You've got an inkling of what you're supposed to be doing. I would imagine that your challenge is the courage and the fortitude to do it more so than the knowledge of what it is. That said, I would also go on a journey of self-discovery and self-awareness because maybe you thought you had a purpose, but it wasn't the right one, like the story I told you about when I was a musician, which was a shadow career for me, to be a public speaker and a person that does what I'm doing now. I was trying to do this through music. And it was the same thing like with YouTube. I tried to do a lot of this through YouTube, first as an entertainer. And the two fields just aren't that compatible. Like, you have to be entertaining. Like, think about the news and television shows. When have you ever heard a debate or a discussion on the news where they actually got deep enough into the issue where it made sense and it wasn't just two people screaming at each other over some overly simplified viewpoint? Well, it's that way because the news show can only be like 7 minutes before they get to the next round of Viagra ads for all the limp dudes that are watching it at 11 a.m. Right? So, yeah, same thing. Christy Piper says, thank you for talking about the sheepdog's responsibility to protect our sheep. It's firing me up and motivating me to take action despite the fear. It's too important to worry about being insulted. Yes, it is. Vato Loco says, what's up, brah? What's going on, Vato? How we doing? Raz says, I just ignored double pulse if you were talking. Oh, man. This is awesome. All right, anybody else got any questions? Anna, did you have any wisdom you wanted to bestow upon us tonight? While we're waiting for the last questions to come in. So the topic of tonight was, the wolf is at the door. How will you respond? And the point of that discussion was a metaphor for, in life you have two choices. You can choose to live out your purpose, or you can choose to basically live a life of desperation where you spend the rest of your life trying to distract yourself from the pain of running away from your purpose. And it was asking, in the metaphor we talked about how every person who wants to set out to do something good is going to find that when they leave their house, they're going to be facing a wolf that wants to stop them. And a lot of people turn back and go into the house because they're afraid of the wolf, but the only way to get to what you want is to be willing to fight the wolf. Knowing that you're going to take a couple of bites and scars, but it's not going to kill you. Are you willing to go through the pain? Similar to what Stephen Pressfield talked about in his book, Turning Pro. Are you willing to go through that psychological and emotional pain to get to where you're trying to go? Yeah, exactly right. So Anna's answer to that was like, so basically what I'm doing right now in my life. I'm like, yes.
Yep. Um, gee, in general, totally worth the fight. Not always easy, but by far way, way better. Even if it's tough, if you're fighting, you're gonna sleep better at night.
Ooh, I
Just
like
saying.
that. So Anna just said, even if it's tough, even if the fight is tough, that's a great way to put that. Anna just says, even if the fight is tough, it's only going to make you sleep better at night. That's so true.
Yeah, you're gonna go to bed with peace of mind that you did your best for the day, and the next day you're gonna wake up rejuvenated, and you're gonna throw more punches, and you might take a few more hits, but it'll be worth it in the long run.
Yeah,
You'll get better every time.
for sure. That's a
Whereas
great
when you're
answer.
running from it, I can tell you it will definitely cause you insulin levels and anxiety, and it will be a mental wreck.
Yeah,
Oh, that deteriorates that
I don't
level.
know what you found it. Right?
yeah, that's a great point. I like that.
That was a really good because I mean I experienced that for the last 2 days. I've noticed that like going back to what we were talking about with the whole like health scares and stuff like that. Once you get whatever you get done and you figure it out, it is kind of like peace of mind. You know, you kind of like it's it's just okay. I can sleep at night and everything's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because I mean the only thing you cannot escape, and I say this not in a morbid way, but like because it's true. The only thing you cannot escape is death.
Steven says the
And
only thing you cannot escape is death. So why not? Why be afraid to fight the wolf? Because the worst it can do is something that's going to happen to you anyway.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, and at least you get to go down fighting and not, the
Yeah.
there's a great line from and we can no other questions are coming in, so I don't need to hold you guys. There's a great line from the show for whomever's seen it, Band of Brothers, where they're at the Battle of Foy outside of France. The Battle of the Bulge. They're trying to push their way through, and they're getting shelled, meaning they're getting artillery. They're getting this done to them. I'm showing everybody my shirt for those who can't see me that are just listening. They're getting shelled, and guys are getting their legs blown off, and all kinds of craziness. And after the shelling stops, one of the lieutenants comes up on a kid that was hiding in his ditch, and actually that may not have been the Battle of Foy. No, no, no. He wasn't hiding in his ditch at the Battle of Foy. He was talking about months ago when they landed. The airborne jump that he hid in his ditch when everyone else was trying to find the unit. And so the lieutenant, Spears, my favorite character in the series, the one I relate to the most, said to him, he said, everybody's scared, Blythe, but the reason why you hid in that ditch is because you still have hope. He says, hope that you're going to make it out of here alive. And he says, the only hope you have is to accept the fact that you're already dead. Because it's at that point you can start to act without fear, without hesitation, without remorse. All war depends on that. And so his point was, you hid in the ditch because you were still hoping to get out of this alive. And he's telling him the only way you're getting out of here alive is to accept the fact that you died the minute you stepped foot in this country. And you need to start behaving like a dead man. Because when you do that, you're going to do everything that's necessary as a combatant to combat and do your job. And somehow that has a strange counterintuitive way of keeping you alive. And that's really the metaphor of the wolf is you're hiding in the house because you think you can hide from the wolf. And you think, oh, maybe the wolf will just go away. And he's never going away because the wolf is in you. And you got to be willing to overcome it. Let's see, last question. Imani Watkins says, any advice for social anxiety? It's hard to have a social media marketing agency and be ridden with people anxiety. So a couple of things. I would definitely seek out therapy for sure to help you deal with that. Just forget about the agency for a second and just think about taking care of yourself, right? Because your business is only going to be as strong as you are. So therapy, and consider getting someone to partner with you that's better at the people stuff, right? I don't struggle so, and I'll give you an example from me personally. I don't struggle so much with social anxiety in the classical sense because I'm a pretty extroverted guy. I can easily get into a room, but I do sometimes struggle with social anxiety from the perspective of just being a very different person. Um, Sometimes some social environments aren't the most comfortable for me because I don't like, especially if I'm not like. I'll give you an example. I went to one kid's birthday party with my wife years ago when my oldest son was a little baby. And I said, never again. Dude, I'm not going to any more kids because I'm having to sit here and pretend like I'm interested in talking to these other parents who I'm sure are great Americans. But Jesus Christ, like we spent an hour trying to put together a kid's toy and none of us could figure it out. And it was intellectual, mental torture for me to sit there and try to come up with stuff to talk about because none of us really had much in common. And the way I got over that was my business partner is I am highly extroverted, but I'm not necessarily, and I have a lot of social confidence, so I can be in a room and totally, yeah. But I don't necessarily like I hate small talk and just like chit chatting. Like, you guys have any friends that just call? I just called to chat. Jesus, I don't want to chat. Like, what do you want? Like, just get to the point, right? Like, I'm not a highly like I love conversation and in-depth discussion, but I don't like just like chit chatting with people at happy hour. So what did you think of the last episode of Friends? I don't care. I hope Friends burns to the ground. Whatever. So I have a business partner who is that social butterfly type that just likes talking. He just and so I take him, and then he can do kind of the hype man, and then I can come in behind and have the deeper conversations that I'm more in. And I can do small talk. I'm not bad at it. It takes a lot of energy. Like you can be extroverted and lose energy being around people depending on what you're having to talk. Or like if I have to listen to people stupidly argue about political issues where they don't understand that it's way more complicated than their oversimplified value system that they're screaming at each other about. So I would say therapy, if it's very strong, but also maybe take someone with you that makes you more comfortable to be around. Works for me. All right, Anna, Steven, anything else for me?
Not really. I just noticed that, like, when you're chit chatting, is like, I've learned to, I've grown to hate small talk, and I started having long, in-depth conversations with people. Like, the
Yeah,
more that I talk to them, the more that, like, alright, I don't want to waste time talking about, stupid stuff. Let's just get right to the whatever. That's going to bring us both values of the conversation. So that's what I've noticed.
yeah. And it's a preference thing. You know, like I said, a lot of us can do small talk, but for me, it just takes a lot of energy to focus on somebody saying something that's not interesting. And strangely enough, most people are, especially like you're gonna find in your SMMA world, like if you had my struggle, you don't deal with that on the like when I meet with other entrepreneurs, I never have this problem. I never have the um, I never have the social anxiety when I'm going to meet with other entrepreneurs because we're all there. We get the we get the point. So Imani says she's the exact same way. Uh, Nietzsche Sean Will says, "Hey Brian, hey. All right, friends. It's been an honor and a pleasure to share the field of battle with you all. I pray that each of you are going to choose to fight the wolf. I promise you, the reward is worth the pain. Promise you, and the suffering of hiding in your house like I did for a lot of years is way more than you think you can bear. Believe me. So don't do it. I love you guys dearly. YouTube, if you want to keep up with these streams in the future, this will be the last YouTube live stream for either forever or I don't know how long it'll be before I do another YouTube stream, if ever. But we will be doing them on Twitch at least once a week, if not twice a week, 6 p.m. on Sundays, which we're not ready to start the 6 p.m. on Sunday podcast yet. And I just learned tonight that we have other technical issues that I wasn't even aware of. So I'm glad we actually did this show because our first live podcast would have really sucked if I didn't have those issues worked out. But Thursday nights at 9, we'll be right back here And then eventually Sunday nights at 6 p.m. we'll be shooting the podcast live. Maybe we'll let a couple of you guys get on the headset with me and actually talk and not just have to do comments. But that'll all be happening on Twitch. Those of you who are still on the YouTube train, don't really want to mess with Twitch, you'll be able to watch the podcast because we'll upload it after the fact, but we will not stream it because all the equipment that we have going into Twitch is going to be the priority. So anyway, love you guys dearly.